Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is John Suntress. It's awards season, and it's 2020, a new year. Very exciting. I love this time of year because I like awards season. I get to participate. I'm a member of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. So I get to vote for the SAG Awards. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. And, get to look at a bunch of screeners and Oscar contenders. So I'm really excited about that. That will figure into some of the conversations you'll be hearing this week on Word Balloon. Also great conversations with comic book creators as well. Don't worry about it. But I thank you for listening. As always, thank you for listening through the commercials and not fast-forwarding. It means a lot. Pays the bills. And questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com. Follow me on Twitter @JohnWordBalloon or on my Facebook page under my name, John Suntress, and the Word Balloon Network page. One more spot, and then we'll start the show. Thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, a fun Star Trek talk with Blaine Dowler. I call him Canadian Yeoh Chips. He is a regular contributor to the Yeah podcast and part of the Yeah listening group at I Like Pink very much, Lois. He's a hardcore Star Trek fan. He is a little late to the game on Discovery, but just watched Season 2. We talk about it. We talk about Picard coming up in a couple days. And Blaine has a great nerd website called Bureau 42. They're doing 99 years, 100 films covering every best Oscar winner for the Best Picture. And I imagine I will do one of those movies with Blaine as well. He wanted me to do Patton. Patton's too traumatic for me. I can't handle Patton. But fun Star Trek conversation with Blaine Dowler on this episode of Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your wonderful support via Patreon. If you like the conversations that we have here at Word Balloon, patreon.com/wordballoon is my patron page if you want to subscribe. I really appreciate everyone who does that. Thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. They're shaking things right now at your local comic shop. They're having a hell of a 2020. They've got upcoming new titles like John Layman's The Man Who Effed Up Time, Zach Thompson's Undone by Blood, and God Killers by Mark Sable. Now, they'll be going along with your favorites like Marguerite Bennett's Animosity with Raphael de la Tour, Baby Teeth with Donny Cates and Gary Brown, Walk Through Hell from Garth Ennis, Goran Sudzuka. Their catalog is filled with works from some of my favorite people in comics, people like Tim Seeley and Cullen Bunn and Paul Jenkins, Brian Azzarello, so many more. Go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to get these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, let's get into it now. A great conversation about Star Trek, one of my favorite subjects. I can't help it, man. I am nervous about Picard, but I'm also excited. It's just coming in a couple days, and I'm happy to welcome a good guy that knows his Star Trek, and I knew I'd have a great discussion with him. Blaine Dowler. Me and him talking about Star Trek, the current version, and we dip back a little bit in old Star Trek as well on today's Word Balloon. Well, I'm welcoming back the man that the Yeah podcast has referred to as Canadian Yeoh Chips, which is meant as a compliment, Blaine Dowler. I hope you know that.
I do, yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to talk to you. Welcome back. Actually, you and I always have private chats, but this... Have you been on... I know I did your Night Stalker podcast conversation about your various DVD season watchings and stuff of various shows.
Yeah, I think this is... and I did the Patreon... Oh, yeah, with the guest on there, the Electric Pickle episode.
Hilarious. Wow, very good, man. See, this is good. You have a steel trap mind. In fact, we were just talking about what we're probably primarily going to talk about, which is Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard, the anticipation.
I'm game for that.
Good.
If you want, we can even dive into some of the Abrams verse movies and how that fits in.
Absolutely, man. You know, it's so funny. I when I talked to Rob Burnett, and he and I obviously are kind of in the same camp of being frustrated by Discovery. Well, I would say we could start with the Abrams movies because I think that's a good short thing, and also little tweak of news about Star Trek 4. Apparently, I don't know if you saw that in the last couple of days, but I figured you did. But yeah, so I mean, myself, I liked the 2009 first movie, and I was told, and I really liked the idea that it's an alternate universe. All bets are off. things can happen differently, and accepted the changes in characterization. I do have to admit I'm not a big fan of the decisions made in young Spock, Zachary Quinto Spock. Not at all ever faulting any of the actors, but we can get into more detail. But yeah, 2009. 2010 was a pretty, Star Trek Into Darkness, the second movie, pretty sloppy movie, man. And even in this age, and I think if it had come out even a couple of years later, I always point to that one shot of Alice Eve in her underwear, and it's like, oh, come on, man. I'm like, yeah, she's a beautiful woman, but boy, you want to talk about completely unnecessary like titillation. It's like, okay.
And I don't remember if it was with you or if it was on another podcast where I heard the revisions that scene went through, because it started off much more equal.
Oh, interesting. And that would have, even then, it's kind of like going back to Enterprise when, hey, we have to decontaminate and stuff. All right, let's rub each other.
Yeah, or the season 3 premiere that turned me off Enterprise the first time when Hoshi loses her top and all this other stuff. It's like, come on.
That's right. I remember that as well. Exactly, man. Too ridiculous. Anyway, so that's the second movie. Star Trek Beyond is a little bit better, but it still had some kind of clunky things to it. And honestly, it still cracks me up that they've got Idris Elba, literally one of the best-looking leading men in the world, completely covered until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. And it's like, man, what a waste. I mean, I get it, I guess. It was just weird. I don't know. And also just there were things about I liked Star Trek Beyond better than Into Darkness, but it was still a bit of a disappointment, I would say. So that's my quick assessment of the three movies. Yours?
Okay. My nutshell, the 2009 reboot was a really good Star Wars movie that had Star Trek characters in it. I still enjoy it, but it didn't really push the Star Wars or Star Trek buttons of asking us, what kind of future do we want? What does utopia look like?
Right.
That wasn't in it. It was just the fun roller coaster romp that I find Star Wars generally does best.
Sure.
Into Darkness is one of those movies that there's a lot going on screen. So the first time through, I enjoyed it more than any subsequent viewing because it's one of those things where you start to pull at the logic in the script just a little bit and everything collapses. It is, I think today the only Star Trek film I enjoy less is 5.
I will defend Final Frontier over any of the JJ movie. Well, the 2009 movie, I would say it's a tie because even though 5's a flawed movie, Final Frontier, absolutely, in a lot of ways. That said, I don't know. There's a lot of scenes in 5 that I do adore. I mean, Scotty breaking him out of the brig, Sulu landing the shuttle, and having to do it, manually and stuff. But actually, this is my first attempt.
None of these movies are all bad, but it's
well, that's true.
It's at the bottom of my pile.
All right, fair enough, understood. And by the way, if I may, as far as Into Darkness, what a waste of Khan as a character, and further, what a attempt to evoke the feelings of Wrath of Khan as far as Kirk and Spock and the death scene and all that stuff. And it's just like, no, these guys barely know each other. In Wrath of Khan, you're dealing with two men that served together in the service and everything, and were lifelong friends and understood each other and everything about them. And that's why it's so tragic, obviously. And it's just like, no, these guys just met each other, and I don't care about your mind meld. Oh, my God, you're my best friend. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that before, and I agree. They did not earn that moment. The only thing about that surprised me, by the time we got there, I got that they were flipping the roles and having Kirk be the life in danger.
Yeah.
But honestly, earlier on in the film, when Kirk tells Chekhov to put on the red shirt, I figured he was the one going down.
Sure, possibly, yeah.
But even bringing Kirk back, speaking as someone with a background in physics research, if you've got a very limited supply of Khan's blood, which he tells you can cure almost any illness, would you take even a small part of that limited supply and inject it in the dead sample of a completely different species just to see what happens? That's the only reason that they knew it could save Kirk is because the Trimble came back to life. Once as soon as McCoy injected it, I'm like, oh, damn, that's how they're coming back.
Well,
whoever dies, that's it. It was just so telegraphed.
Can't we argue, unfortunately, that the short... you haven't seen it. You haven't seen the triple short trek, have you?
No, I haven't, because... Yeah.
Oh, all right, Blaine. I'm gonna cut you slack because I'm sure you'll, at least from a curiosity standpoint, want to see it. I can't say I'm not. I can't say I'm crazy about a lot of the, the short treks in general. I mean, it was Calypso. You were telling me before we started recording that they had 2 of the short treks on the second season of Discovery. Not all of them, which is surprising. And actually,
only 2 are included in the Blu-ray, and Runaway is the only one that I remember by name.
Okay,
right now.
What was this? Do you remember what the subject was of the second one? Was it about Saru's people?
I honestly haven't had a chance to go back and watch it.
All right.
So I just finished. Okay. It was a Christmas gift that I just recently got through.
Because much like Runaways being a prequel to what ultimately happens in Season 2 of Discovery, another Season 2 short trek is clearly going to figure into Season 3 of Discovery. And I'll just leave it at that. You might already know if you've read about it.
I've seen the promo for Season 3, so I do know that we're picking up 930 years from now, which is consistent with what Michael Burnham was estimating, because, of course, it's Michael Burnham's estimate, because she does everything of value.
It's always right.
Yeah.
It's always right, and it's awe-striking. Everyone's got to stand back and kind of dig the Burnham vibe as they try to move the plot along. It's like, good Lord. And it's so funny because I posted a screen cap because I forget who did it, but I know I saw it on StarTrek.com. They put out almost 20 images from Star Trek Picard. And one of them seems to be the girl in Troubles is looking at, I'm assuming, some sort of holographic vision of young Ethan Peck Spock with a beard and everything. And I'm just like, please, in reverse Reese's peanut butter cup philosophy, please don't put your peanut butter in my chocolate. Please don't put your Discovery peanut butter in my chocolate. Please.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as a quick scene just to establish that they are in the same continuity. But that, to me, seems more like the Discovery people saying, yes, we count, than the Picard people saying, we need this. Because once you have Picard, you don't need to establish. That would do more to benefit Discovery than the original series, unless, you got to have some reason that they're delivering it. But if you need somebody to deliver a logical perspective that matters, given what we already know of Picard, wouldn't Data make a lot of sense?
Well, and again, taking that image out of context, I have no idea what the story around it is. We'll find out when the season happens. I'm assuming that you're not going to get. Actually, now you're in Canada, so Are there non-streaming options for you to be able to see the series?
There is now. That's part of the reason I was watching Discovery on Blu-ray. When it launched, you could watch it on what was at the time Space the Imagination Station, what's now CTV Sci-Fi.
Right. Yeah.
It's been rebranded, but since I cut cable 13 years ago, I don't have access to that. The CTV Sci-Fi app at the time Discovery launched required you to be subscribed to that channel through your cable service to log in to get it free.
Sure.
Now anyone with a free account can get it, but it's only available for 1 week. So now I should be able to watch Picard after a short delay, as long as it, not live with everyone else, but also within that next week.
Okay.
I should be able to watch it without paying for an extra streaming service here in Canada.
Interesting. Wow. It is always very interesting to hear how other countries have to deal with this and everything. And obviously I know that outside of the U.S. and Canada, it's on Amazon Prime. So Amazon Prime people can watch Picard, and obviously we know Discovery was on Netflix. I haven't heard where Season 3 is going to be, if Netflix is sticking with it or if it's all jumping to Prime. I'm assuming Netflix is going to stay with it, just because it just seems like whatever existing deals were in place prior to other deals popping up and stuff. It's like, look at the Star Wars movies that are still on Netflix despite the existence of Disney Plus,
Yeah, but I'm assuming that that's just going to run until the contract expires.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
No,
and I'm more concerned about where like Daredevil and Punisher are going because I don't want to lose access to Daredevil.
I hear you, man. No, and I feel the same way. I think the Marvel, really, especially now that the Marvel television era is ending this year, I really do think it's like, hey, let's step back and really give it to Jeff Loeb and company because, yeah, there were definitely a couple misfires in there, but just like any other television production company, there are great shows and not so great shows. So I think their batting average was quite good, and really I'm glad that this happened. And it's been a very interesting decade of the existence of Marvel television. And I'm totally for everything being under the same roof, and obviously excited about the Disney Plus Marvel shows and everything. But yeah, I'm really interested in, again, I think those shows deserve credit, the good ones.
Oh, they do. And even looking at it, it is the general consensus that I agree with that Iron Fist is the worst of the bunch on the Netflix shows. But even that, I can point to shows on broadcast networks that are significantly worse than Iron Fist. I think part of what hurt Iron Fist, not only is that the bar set very high by what came before, but it was one of the ones where key people were put in place at the last minute, and that train was out of the station, and they spent some of the times telling their own story, but the rest of the time was setting up the defenders. They just didn't really have the freedom to establish themselves or the time to do it right.
I completely agree. And I do think there were, especially among the earlier Iron Fist episodes, even though it was such a slow burn, that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it probably is the worst of the bunch. But again, I think some good episodes in there. And really, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones were fantastic. And The Punisher was great. And yeah, Daredevil, I think Daredevil start to finish was amazing.
Oh yeah, season 3 of Daredevil was incredible.
Yep.
Iron Fist on the Netflix series, they fixed the same way they fixed him in the comics. His original run was, 15 issues? And then it faltered?
That's right.
And how did they fix him? They put him in a room with Luke Cage.
Yep.
Boom. That's exactly what happened on The Defenders.
Yep. You got it, man. That's true. Very funny. Well, back to Star Trek. All right, so now 2 seasons in. Well, if you want, I mean, my opinion is well known. I think if people know, I am disappointed. I'll go into detail on some things. I was going to say earlier when we were talking about how Michael Burnham is the solution to everything. I was having a conversation with someone on Instagram because I posted that image of Spock and the girl in trouble. I forget her name on Picard. I'm not paying attention enough yet.
I don't even know her name. I saw the first teaser and I'm like, okay, looks worthwhile. And I've been deliberately avoiding everything ever since to leave as many surprises as possible.
Good for you, man. And yeah, I think that's wise. I do think that's wise. So the girl in trouble. Other than that image, someone is like, what didn't you like about Star Trek? And I'm like, especially now you can argue, and it's fair to say that for the most part, the original series was a James Kirk show, and James Kirk was the lead, and he mostly got everything right. Every now and then, Spock would have the answer. By the time of the Next Generation, it became a show about a team and a crew and everything. And I do realize that their idea for Discovery was, no, we're focusing on a character, and we're not going to focus on a captain. We're going to focus on a different officer, or obviously the way things started in the first season, a disgraced former officer. That's okay. I don't mind that. What I do mind, though, is Star Trek has always represented teamwork, even in the original series, and Scotty would save the day, or McCoy would have the answer, or something like that would happen. Never taking focus away from the fact that it was still Shatner's show. But again, and that's what I was kind of hoping for. With the occasional exception of Tilly, everything comes from Michael Burnham. Everything. And it kind of pisses me off because it's like, the beginning of the second season, as I've said in other shows, when Pike has to say, okay, why don't you all introduce yourselves, bridge crew, because I don't know your names. And it's like, hey, neither do I, and I've spent 15 hours with these people, and I still don't know their names. So I think that's a really bad mistake that even in 2 seasons barely got acknowledged or rectified. I don't think they have shown that this is a great team, and that's one of the classic things about Star Trek. Again, as you said, we're reaching out there with the best and the brightest. I don't see Michael Burnham being surrounded by the best and the brightest, at least not by anything they do plot-wise or character-wise.
Yeah, and maybe it's there, but they're not choosing to show us those moments.
Well, yeah.
Like you said. I mean,
but that's dumb, man. I mean,
most of the time Uhura was answering phones, but
they haven't blown themselves up yet. So yeah, they must be competent at their jobs. And yeah, we just don't get to see it. It's like, well, gee, I don't know. I'm sorry. I think, again, I curse myself sometimes because it's like, take a show at face value. Don't go, well, if I were writing it, I would have done ... Again, I'm sorry. This is Star Trek, and I do think there are things that make Star Trek intrinsically different from other shows. And I just, I don't know, man. Again, 2 seasons into it, barely know the bridge crew. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think early in season 2, it did feel like there were some conscious course corrections. Like you said, that moment where Pike's going, okay, who am I working with? Forget the ranks. They're not important. Give me names. And there's that. There's, culling out the uniforms, saying, oh, you've got the new uniforms to explain why they're different. And there's some I get. I mean, I'm a teacher by day, and I've got students who refused to watch Star Trek, the original series, or even Next Generation beyond 30 or 40 seconds because they said they're 200 years into the future and their communication is still Skype.
Yep.
Like, what? So I'm willing to forgive them on the holographic thing, which they explained why it was disappearing. But you can see the seams, especially in season 2, of shifting showrunners halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Because it did feel like it was really going to explore faith versus science, which had been done on Deep Space Nine. I think we've got some of the same ideas here. Have the people who are out there saying this is what Discovery is doing and where it's going where no Star Trek has gone before. Some of those statements have you seen DS9?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, is that coming from the PR machine behind Discovery? Because it seems to me that a lot of the claims that they make about their firsts, it's like, wow, way to ignore your entire history. And again, it's I keep coming back to this. My feeling is the creatives behind Discovery in particular are playing at Star Trek. They understand fan service, so have your checklist. Oh, there's a Tribble. Okay. Oh, there's a Gorn skeleton. It doesn't really matter to the plot, but they're there. Those kind of little mnemonic devices, for lack of a better description. I can mix my metaphors. Yeah, they're there, but they don't matter. And the new stuff they create flies in the face of continuity as well. And it's just like, well, just go with us on this, okay? And it's like, no, it's not okay. Sorry, you've established a history. The show's popular because of its history. Yeah,
and I get expanding and telling different stories.
Sure.
Especially since I'm really getting the impression that the anecdotal evidence that people are subscribing to CBS All Access, watching Trek while there's new episodes, and then unsubscribing. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of that.
But yeah. Oh, yeah.
And seeing that, CBS is now, they're putting out so many shows, I swear the goal is to have new Trek every week to keep those people.
100%. Of course there is. That's the core. That's the core of who is subscribing to this, and I'm okay with that. That's no different than DC Universe, making sure that there's constantly shows in the wheel, and obviously Doom Patrol's different than Titans, but technically same universe and everything. So I'm okay with okay with 12 months nonstop Trek all year long.
I'll take your word on that. We've got some of those shows on Netflix here, but DC All Access is not in Canada. Or DC Universe.
Okay.
CBS All Access is in Canada, but existing contracts still held. So if I were to subscribe to CBS All Access in Canada, I wouldn't have any new content, but I could watch all of Cheers, and I'm like, I'm not paying $6.99 a month when I've got the DVDs over there.
Wow.
So should these contracts expire and then Trek and Twilight Zone and their other original content show up here, I'd sign up.
I understand. You're not missing much with Twilight Zone either.
I've heard some Twilight Zone reviews. Everyone agrees it doesn't touch the original. The only debate is which of the reboots is the best.
Yeah, honestly, it's so funny. I don't know if this is happening in Canada, but one of the digital channels here has been rerunning the 80s Twilight Zone that Straczynski wrote for and Marty Pasco wrote for, among others. And, I have to say that I even remembered watching more episodes of the 80s Twilight Zone initially. And they were hit and miss, but again, I mean that's the in baseball metaphor, that's the 1927 Yankees as far as the original writers. My God, what what a group of ridiculously talented people that, I mean, my God, the things they did beyond the Twilight Zone, all of them. I mean, you go from, George Clayton Johnson writing Ocean's 11 and co-writing Logan's Run to all of the great things Richard Matheson created and adapted. Hugh Beaumont Charles Beaumont, excuse me.
Yeah, Charles Beaumont, yeah.
Hugh Beaumont, of course, Beaver's dad from Leave It to Beaver. I mean, all the Earl Hamner, the Walton's creator, contributed a lot of really good Twilight Zone episodes. I mean, it's a murderer's row of amazing writers, not just television, but film and otherwise, and prose. So I mean, these are really like giants. Rhea Bradbury even wrote the one Twilight Zone episode and everything. Good Lord. Anyway, that's the Twilight Zone. But back to Star Trek. And also I'll tell you, 2 seasons in, I really hate Michelle Yeoh's character. I think she's a brilliant actress, and I really like that she continues to work and do interesting things. But I mean, good Lord, it's really sad. I mean, I would have been happy to truly follow Captain Giorgio, and that would have been okay. But this person is so reprehensible from what happens in the Mirror Universe. It's like, are we supposed to like her? And also, why does Michael Burnham feel any sort of connection to this person? Because it's not her surrogate mother. And to even suggest that it reminds her of her surrogate mother, I think is shitty writing, frankly. I just do.
Yeah. I think, if anything, Burnham should hate her more because of the face she's stolen. Right. But that should be the emotional feel.
She and the Admiral let her in. That should not have happened. There's one case where Michael Burnham should have definitely had an insubordinate moment and been like, no, I can't let this happen. This person is evil and should be nowhere near Starfleet. I am killing her.
It should have been, if you're letting her into the Federation, you do not stand for what you claim to stand for. Right. I'm going back to the Vulcan fleet.
Yeah, no shit, exactly. That would have been great. That would have been excellent. Good Lord. Yeah.
And had they done that, it would have, I think, had a better justification for saying the show's about one character. So to have her with Starfleet for a season and then leave the Federation or the Starfleet and go to another planet, or like the Vulcan
I'm with you.
exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that would have been intriguing, and then have the Federation almost be a side character, because it's the title is Star Trek Discovery. It doesn't have to be about the ship. It really could just be about the idea of truly discovering. And you're right about that. That would have been fun. I'm for it. Join that writing staff, Blaine, now.
Yeah, frankly, I'm a little disappointed that season 3 is going to be Discovery 930 years in the future, because I wanted to follow Pike's Enterprise.
Well, I am very convinced that it's a foregone conclusion that sooner than later we'll get a Pike series, because everybody seems to want it. Without going into full spoiler, you might have read that a couple of the new short treks, Anson Mount shows up. So, I mean, it's. I think they've heard the fans, and it's interesting because I don't know how true it is or not, but supposedly behind the scenes, they weren't happy with Anson Mount's performance of Pike. They thought he was kind of low-keying it. And we're like, all right, whatever. And it's like, no, we love this guy. More of him, please. And also, the only guy allowed to be smart and not be the cause of the problem, wrong all the time, or just in the way and incompetent. And unfortunately, I would say that about 90% of the male characters on this version of Star Trek. And I'm sorry, Voyager was able to show a lot of strong women in very lead roles without minimizing the men's contributions. And I don't, again, understand it. And I think it's trying too hard to be woke to a point of ridiculousness. And this is when I get angry as a liberal and say, okay, relax. Not every guy is an asshole or a bad guy. It's like, but again, it seems like good men are hard to find apparently on Discovery. Yeah, I would have similar issues with every other female. Like Tilly has issues. Like Giorgio, well, I mean, she's not the hero, but she is eminently capable. I wouldn't say that's exclusively the male characters. I'd say it's predominantly the non-Burnham characters. Like it feels like writing Berman. It's got the problems that a lot of Sherlock Holmes and other detective shows have, where
the detective doesn't actually seem all that brilliant. It's just that they're surrounded by morons.
See, right? I think in Holmes' case they explain it, and yeah, I mean, especially you can go to the really Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce kind of movies and stuff and get that feeling. I don't know. I love the Cumberbatch Sherlock, I have to say.
Oh yeah, the BBC Sherlock is fantastic.
Yeah.
The Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller has its moments, but I know the Acker and Blacker and the Ernest Writers panel. There was one comment they made where sometimes people had pitches for shows and the network said we need this, and there was a couple shows that got greenlit because they made a couple tweaks, and the writers panel refused to name which ones. But watching Elementary, which premiered in the season they were talking about, I'm wondering if maybe Doherty had an idea for a detective series already that was going to have the homages to Holmes that they all do. I mean, right down to House living at 221B. And I mean, Adrian Monk in the pilot episode of Monk, Leland Stottlemyre, and Randy's last name was Deacon. You take the first two letters of all their names, it spells Lestrade.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Holmes references are all over detective shows.
Oh, absolutely.
I wonder, did they decide to make Holmes or Watson a female to change it up a little bit, or did he already have that homage in mind with a male and female lead? And they said, we want a Sherlock adaptation since he's public domain, and Stephen Moffat refused to bring the BBC Sherlock to America, and he's like, okay, well, let me just change a few names and bring that over.
Now, the way I heard the story regarding Sherlock was that Moffat was talking to CBS because he was talking to a bunch of countries about possibly either syndicating it or doing a version for CBS, but they wanted their changes, and he's like, no, it's fine the way it is. And then somewhere in the bowels of CBS, someone's like, Sherlock Holmes is public domain, right? And it's like, oh, never mind. And then all of a sudden, their show came out. I mean, good Lord, the Elementary font for the logo is almost identical to Sherlock, and there was a lot of similarities in a bit of the title sequence that you could point to Sherlock and everything, and it's just like, oh God. And I don't know, I never warmed up to it because, when and Watson's a chick, hey, I'm like, all right, whatever. And especially Lucy Liu, who at times she's been okay as far as acting, at other times I'm like, all right, whatever. But do you know about the film from the 70s? They Might Be Giants with George C. Scott and Joanne Woodward.
I've heard of it. I haven't gotten around to watching it yet.
It's incredible. It is, I believe, on DVD. I was going to say for a long time I don't think it was. But it's a very cute movie where George C. Scott plays a judge who's kind of addled and believes he's Sherlock Holmes. And Joanne Woodward is a caseworker that's assigned to him, and he assumes she's Watson. And they immediately just start working on a crazy case. And it's great. It's a very sweet movie. It works. For me, it absolutely worked, and I just bought it. And it was fun because, again, he wasn't Sherlock Holmes. She wasn't Watson, but it was very Quixote-esque in terms of the way they presented it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And it was fun. It's a fun movie. But yeah, so whatever, Sherlock and Elementary. But yeah, back to Discovery. I just felt that really both seasons were really poorly plotted. I hate what they've done with Section 31. Can't stand it.
Yeah, it is. I have issues with having a clandestine organization that as soon as they pull out the black badge or make some mention, whoever they're talking goes, yeah, I've heard of that. Because the audience is up to speed, so why explain it every 2 minutes? It should have been on the down low, or maybe they should have known that Section 31 existed, but not understand what its true mission was, and it worked under a blind. Then you wouldn't have to explain it, but go, wait a minute, you're doing what now?
Well, and again,
get to it that way.
So many choices they've made, you would think they don't realize that, okay, we're striking new ground, but it's like, well, yeah, but you've got these other shows that are part of your continuity, like it or not, that take place in the future of your show. So I think you're kind of beholden for things to unfold the way they did in these later shows. And I agree with you. I think Section 31 should absolutely have been more black ops and clandestine, because I like when Sisko's like, well, the Federation or the Starfleet won't confirm or deny the existence of Section 31. And it's just, the little nibbles that we got during Deep Space Nine and even in the prequel show of Enterprise and stuff. It just should, it should be treated much more darker of a mystery. And also, well, hell, I had that problem with the pilot for Discovery, which I liked in general terms. It was a very exciting pilot, and I thought, really interesting when you watched the full 2 hours. I think one of their hugest mistakes in not getting more initial bites for subscribers to All Access was only showing part one of the pilot, and it's like, no, man, shame on you. Show us a full movie and invite us to continue the story or not.
Yeah, we did have a step up in Canada. CTV, which is the main network. That was, it's on like the ABC, CBS, NBC level.
Yeah.
For Canada, that showed the first hour, and every ad break they reminded you. Part 2 is airing on Space the Imagination Station immediately after. So all you had to do was change channel to their sci-fi focused affiliate.
Yeah.
And you could watch both hours opening night.
That's good.
Which is, it would have been nice to have it both hours on one station, but this is the next best thing.
Sure. No, at least, again, there was access to it. And again, a cable audience versus over-the-air audience. But again, I don't know. But I guess what I was going to say about the pilot is, just their confusion and not knowing exactly about the Klingons because there's been no contact and stuff. Well, there was a lot of contact with the Klingons in the Enterprise era, and I understand that was 80 years before or whatever it was, 100 years before even. But I'm like, okay, that information should still exist, and I would imagine Captain Archer was fully debriefed. And gave a full debrief in terms of what he knew about the Klingons every time they encountered him. So,
yeah, there's no excuse for the Discovery crew not knowing what Archer's crew knew at the end of that series.
Yeah,
I'm with you completely on that.
Well, that's what I mean, man. So really, we're off to the races with the first story, and it's just like, okay, I don't believe this. This doesn't make sense. You didn't pay attention to your own show's history, and again. People will pull back and go, well, Chekhov surely shouldn't have known who Khan was because Space Seed happened before Chekhov joined the cast.
Well, it happened before Chekhov was in the bridge crew. There's no reason he wasn't in the lower decks.
I know that's always been what's his face? Nicholas Meyer's. Nicholas Meyer's explanation. And that's fine. I'm totally for that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, with 400 people and super genius Khan trying to figure out what he's up against, I will totally accept Khan recognizing Chekhov and vice versa. Because Khan, I'm sure, if he had access to those Enterprise libraries to go through it, he would have gone through the crew roster.
Sure.
Anything he had access to, he would have said, okay, who do we have here? Who am I dealing with? What are their roles?
Absolutely. And not only just knowing their names, but absolutely looking at their files, as I'm sure he did, going through the libraries and stuff. Absolutely. And it's, hey, if I'm taking over this ship, I got to know what I'm up against, and I need to know every one of these 400-plus people. That reminds me of something else. I looked it up because I don't know how often they've actually said it, but the crew complement of Discovery, I guess in the first season they said it was around 150, and I believe they said in the second season, and I forget the specific reasons why it expanded up to 200 for those stories. Okay, so at the end of season 2, the official word from Starfleet is Discovery is missing, and no one will ever speak of Discovery again, and it never existed. Okay, I understand within Starfleet. What about the families of those 200 people? So how does that work exactly? I mean,
the more people there,
is it like Soviet space stuff where people are airbrushed out of photos, and it's like, your husband who was a lieutenant colonel cosmonaut, he no longer exists. See you later.
Yeah, the more people you ask to keep a secret, the harder it is to keep, because the more likely they are to say, they'll never know it was me.
I don't even believe that. I don't even believe that someone's going and knocking on doors and going, listen, your son is missing in action. It's classified. You can never speak about your son anymore. Well, what about the neighbors who saw him playing in the yard and might go, hey, how's Billy doing in Starfleet these days?
And I don't... See, to me, that felt like it was overkill. It felt like a lot of the end was explaining why you didn't hear about this. We didn't need to explain why Spock never spoke of his sister, because we wouldn't have known Sarek was his father unless Amanda spoke up, and we wouldn't have known about Sybok unless he showed up. That is totally precedented for Spock. So I got no problems with him having another sibling we haven't heard about.
Okay.
I mean, at least not from Spock.
I'm with you. I mean, I accept your explanation. It is one of my favorite parts of 5 when he's like, you don't have a brother. Yeah. Technically, you're right. I don't have a brother. See, I have a half brother. I got to sit down. That whole back and forth just kills me. Seriously, that's what I'm saying, man. Final Frontier, I watch it all the time for my favorite scenes when it's either on cable or streaming or whatever. Because again, there's a lot of really funny shit in there that I love.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing I might revisit moments on YouTube, but I don't see myself putting in the Blu-ray and going start to finish again. Maybe Hammer Rule in effect, but.
So yeah, I mean, so that really, like you said, I forget which specific Simpsons episode ends that way too, of like, well, that's done, and we will never speak of this again. It might have either been in a character or a story plot point. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, again.
It was early, because I stopped watching that after like season 7 or
Simpsons?
So. Yeah, I haven't seen a new episode of The Simpsons since The X-Files was canceled, because I realized I just didn't enjoy it enough anymore to come back to it.
That's fine.
Seasons 3 through 7 are still like solid gold.
Oh, good Lord. But, no. And I agree with you. And I'd even expand a few more and go into even double digits with great episodes and really great seasons. Every time, and I'll admit I don't watch it every week, every couple months or at least a couple times a year, I will get sucked in and be at a friend's house who's watching The Simpsons, and it's brilliant. And it's always really funny.
Yeah, I've heard it got much better after I stopped. So,
well, yeah.
There's just so much TV out there that's worth watching that I haven't seen yet.
I hear you, man.
I haven't prioritized it.
No, and I mean, nobody can watch everything. Nobody can.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord, the guys who have YouTube channels and spend as much time as they do watching everything, and especially all the brand new stuff, I'm like, that is impressive. Because, there's stuff that's debuted in the last 6 months that I still haven't gotten to and hope to. Things like, second season of Jack Ryan on Amazon. I mean, I thought the first season was great. Still haven't gotten to it,
I have a habit of buying shows I enjoy on DVD because it feels like I'm buying the time to watch them, and I did the math on it.
Sure.
If I want to watch everything I own before retirement, I have to average 1.47 episodes per day. And that's just the TV. That's not the movies.
Well, all right. On balance, then. All right. So, how did you feel after the first season of Discovery?
I felt that the first season entertained me the first time through, but I didn't really think I was going to go back and rewatch it. Partly because, aside from a couple in the middle, there's nothing that's really episodic. And the one episode, the two kind of standalone episodes, where Saru found that safe planet and went nuts, and the Harry Mudd time loop, which were two of the better episodes. But even the Harry Mudd one rubbed me the wrong way, because Harry Mudd strikes me as a fraud and used car salesman, but not a killer. Yep. That's the vibe I got from the original series.
Completely agree, man. He's a con man, and will screw over people to save his ass, but he's not a killer. And I love Rainn Wilson. I actually, I don't know if I've mentioned it to you or on the podcast, but we went to high school together and we're in a play together and everything.
Yeah, I have heard you mention that on the podcast. The kind of thing where you definitely remember him, but you're not sure if he'd remember you.
Probably not, because he was a year younger, and we didn't have classes together, but we did work on this play for 3 months and everything, and did see each other every day in that capacity. And the other leads in the show, Jim Frost, who's a big actor, was on The Wire and Treme, among other shows, and was a lead on both shows. He was Cyrano. It was Cyrano, and actually Rainn played Christian, the good-looking guy that needs Cyrano. He needs his words to kind of get Roxanne and everything. But anyway, that said, I'm thrilled for Rainn's career, and I think he's one of the funniest actors out there. And loved him in The Office. Loved him in The Rocker was even fun. Super was fun with Ellen Page. And, I mean, God, everything he does. And getting this role was a blast, too, because he clearly loves Star Trek. I've seen him at the Star Trek conventions in Vegas on stage talk and everything, and clearly loves Star Trek. It's not his fault. Again, much like Zachary Quinto, not his fault. That's the way Mudd's written. And they've made him into this psycho killer. And it's just like, all right.
Yeah, I can't think of any prominent role in any Star Trek TV series or movie that I would say has been miscast. right? There are the issues with Discovery are either in the writer's room or as a result of the sudden changes of showrunners, while things are, after the train has left the station.
Yeah.
Like the first half of Discovery this season felt like it was going to get introspective and really explore things as the Star Trek I like best has done. And then the second half turned into, again, it was heading more in that Star Wars direction of, okay, let's just have fun fighting this AI.
Loud, clunky, and a lot of bombast with not a lot of sense as far as the story. No, man, I agree with you,
that's a lot of what frustrated me, because this season, I felt like with this AI, I thought, okay, I'm not happy with how public Section 31 is, but if Section 31 is producing this AI that's this level threat, maybe this is telling the story of how Section 31 is dismantled, and the reason people were surprised is because they thought it was gone. And it was kind of one of those embarrassing things that they just try not to talk about in history class. And then you find out, no, we're not dismantling Section 31. We're going to hand it over to someone we trust to do it right. Hey, you, Klingon, who was reprogrammed to think you're a human, you get the top spot.
Yep.
I thought what was going to happen was they were going to make a public show of dismantling it, and then a couple of people said, okay, we did that wrong, but the mission still matters.
Oh, sure. Exactly.
And do it
North basement kind of conversation. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, so the people running Starfleet didn't even know that Section 31 was still a thing.
Yep, and exactly.
Who knows? They're talking about a Section 31 show. If they end it that way, I will accept it.
They keep talking about it. I saw in the promotion of the Star Trek 4 movie, they listed a whole bunch of things, and they included the Michelle Yeoh show. And I think every time Alex Kurtzman is interviewed, he mentions it still. And again, I get it. You've got this bankable star, this bankable international star, who's incredible. And again, that's hell. If anything, how about a prequel show with Giorgio on the Shinzu or whatever the hell the name of the stupid her ship was?
Yeah, the Shinzu.
It is the Shinzu. Thank you. Yeah. I'm shocked that I remember. And then do that, and let's see Captain Giorgio kick ass, because Burnham in that first season goes through like the great captains or whatever, and Giorgio's name's up there. So it's like, okay, show us. And I'm sure I know there already have been prequel books to Discovery. Show us more of that.
I'm about 70% of the way through Desperate Hours right now, which is the first of them.
Oh, there you go.
Which is why Shenzhou was top of mind.
I believe narrated by Word Balloon friend Susan Eisenberg on the Audible version of Desperate Hours.
Entirely possible. I'm not doing the audiobook of that, but
I know she did one of them, and I'm pretty sure I thought it was the first one. So anyway,
I'm enjoying it so far. It's still the Spock in this book feels more like the J.J. Abrams verse.
That's too bad.
Spock than the classic Spock.
That drives me crazy, and in both cases, because giving Spock emotion makes him not matter that much. And I don't. And also regarding Discovery, and now that you've seen the second season, making Spock dyslexic, I hope was just a condition because of the voices he was hearing or whatever interference he was hearing. Because if you're telling me that is really a condition he was born with, that doesn't make sense. Because Star Trek 4 and that wonderful scene when Spock is testing himself and just getting information shot at him left and right, and he is on target. And I don't know. I'm not a medicine man by any stretch. I don't believe someone who has lived with dyslexia could be that nimble with that kind of shit being fired at him. Yeah. Actually, that makes no sense, and frankly is an insult, I think, to both dyslexic people and to the general populace to make us believe, oh, Spock was dyslexic. We like Spock as he was, thank you.
Yeah, it depends on the form of dyslexia. My day job, in case people are listening don't know, I am a teacher.
God, that's great, Blaine. Please inform me, please.
Yeah, so I have worked with a lot of dyslexic people. There is a small percentage of them who cope by reading quickly. Okay. So then the brain sorts out the jumbles because it's not just word by word, but kind of sentence by sentence, and somehow that helps to put the phrase together. So with certain types of dyslexia, reading at higher speeds actually makes it easier than reading at lower speeds.
Well, we were getting the audio as well as the text while Spock was getting all the stuff fired at him and everything as well. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and there are auditory and tactile exclusive forms of dyslexia as well. Sometimes it's just visual, sometimes it's auditory, so everything looks fine in print, but you hear things. So that one I'm willing to accept because I have seen precedent for that in the real world.
All right.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, again, that sounds very rare and would be deserving of a better explanation than what Discovery gave us, I think, but that's me.
Yeah, I get the advantage to trying to represent the populace, and if you've got someone who is possibly, if he is not the most popular Star Trek character of all time, he's close to the top of that list.
Oh, he's absolutely the most popular. Yeah. It's Batman, Superman, man. No, Spock's the Batman in that equation. Absolutely.
Yeah, like it's. I know people who prefer Kirk, but it's.
Oh, sure.
I mean. What the website I write for, when we did a tournament of the greatest sci-fi heroes, Spock won at number 1.
Of course he did. He would always. Yeah, I think Spock would beat Batman pretty handily. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't spend the entirety of second grade trying to be Kirk. I spent it trying to be Spock.
Oh, there you go, man. No, we all. Hey, man, we all feel like outsiders. I mean, that's the thing. Spock was already a universal character. I don't think he needed the dyslexia facet in his character. And frankly, and I know I've said this before, and now that you've seen the second season, there's that one long shot in the corridor where there's a chaos moment, and all of a sudden you see a Starfleet person in a wheelchair roll by, and I'm just like, okay, you already showed that robot girl that died had cybernetic legs, and we've had a lot of cybernetic legs over the years. I mean, you had Pike in the chair, I understand, but I don't know. Again,
yeah, I would say that's not something to Flash. That's something where you make it a featured character. Like, was it Marina? The Deep Space Nine, late season 2, there was the character who was in the wheelchair because she was used to much lower gravity on her homeworld, and not because there was anything that her species would consider physically wrong with her.
Yep, I remember that.
And if you take the time to establish it that way, I get it. But other than that, I mean, we're talking about the series where they got a hand double for Jimmy Doohan because, as far as Roddenberry was concerned, a missing finger would not be an issue at this time. They would figure out a way to grow it back and replace it.
I would agree. I don't understand. Again, you'll forgive me as we're talking for the War Balloon audience as I burp. Dan Slott just chiming in for a moment, and I'm just texting him, letting him know that we're potting, and I can't speak right now. So
okay, unless he wants to come on and talk Discovery,
I can ask him if he wants to come on to talk Discovery. But as we're talking about it, I just think that this show panders all the time. And it just really gets tiresome. And it's like, aren't we great because we're including everybody? And it's like, if you think so, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think I have no problems with inclusivity in a show. I think it's a good thing because I've seen the reaction in students who haven't seemed represented before. But I wonder, are they putting so much emphasis on that's why they're dropping some of the storytelling balls? Because you got to tell a good story first.
Well, yeah, man.
And that's not happening.
No, and again, Star Trek has always been about representation. And yes, go further. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. But they've always managed to do that without sacrificing story or character. And this is what we're getting. And I get angrier every time there's another new or well-written show, whether it's network streaming or whatever, cable. And why is Star Trek apparently left out of the lunchroom when it comes to the cool writers' table? Because everybody is getting these great writers and these great stories and these amazing things. And yes, there's no preconceived notion on a lot of this other stuff. And Star Trek, like Star Wars, suffers from its legacy. And it does make it harder to write it. First of all, sorry, that's the gig. But secondly, I don't know, man. They were able to do it for 25 years between Next Generation and the end of Enterprise, where you got smart science fiction and good characterization. And even the shows like Enterprise and Voyager that weren't as successful when you look at the entire run of each show compared to Next Gen or Deep Space Nine, But still, I think there were a lot of great episodes in both of those shows. And here we've had 30 hours of Discovery, and I see very little to show for it other than disappointment and bad writing.
Yeah, if you're going to tell season-long story arcs, you've got to have the same team there to see it through. I wonder if they would have done better starting episodic and then going long-term like Deep Space Nine did, even though that's not really the way streaming TV is these days. That tends to be long-term, but if you've got a full season story arc and you change showrunners halfway through, the show suffers every time.
I also think that there could be stronger problems of the week in support of the bigger story. And I mean, comic books have done it for a long time. And I just think, there's the way that Deep Space Nine handled those last 10 episodes. And you had the whole big Dominion War and everything in final throes, but you would get these interesting hours of problems. And God, my favorite when Miles and the Doctor are in Sloane's brain looking for Section 41 information to Kuroto and stuff. I mean, it's like those kinds of things, and I don't see that on this show. And again, so much focus on Burnham that no other character has a chance to solve the problem. And also, again, so much insubordination in service of, hey, this is a woman, so F you, man, because the woman's right, and you're wrong, because you're a man. And I mean, everybody, no, Captain, we can't do that. It's like, really? That's fascinating, Burnham. Why don't you go in the brig and think about what you just told me? Well, we got a little bit about that in the pilot, obviously, with Giorgio, but it's just like, Burnham, A, can't help herself, but B, I'm like, what kind of Starfleet is this? I mean, I don't think Captain Picard would take that kind of backtalk. I don't think Catherine Janeway would ever take that kind of backtalk. Be like, sit your ass down, mister. I'm not interested in your opinion. I didn't ask you for your opinion.
Yeah, Sisko would give that crew member a look, and they would shut up mid-sentence.
That's enough, Doctor.
He'd raise an eyebrow, like, are you really saying what you're saying? Think about this.
Well, and truly, like, cases like Bashir would be like, sir, you can't mean that. That's enough, Doctor. It's like, no, man, I'm the final word. That doesn't happen on Discovery. The captain doesn't have the final word. Or if he does, it's, oh, I see your point. All right, let's change it. Do it your way, Burnham. Great idea. Wow, you're great.
Yeah. And that's something I saw a little more of from Pike.
What's that is?
And that's something I saw more of from Pike. Like, and Pike's level of trust. Like, when he was pulling things out and saying, okay, Saru, you're on the away mission, and Saru's like, actually, sir, there's something I'd like to investigate. And Pike just said, okay, you're going instead. And left Saru behind, which is when that UV thing, and they realized it was a hologram, which, that was great. But that's, again, the characters that I love the most here in this season were, Pike by far.
Yep, I agree.
Actually, running through my top 4 or 5 characters, the only one who's still on the show next season is Saru. Like, everyone else is off on the Enterprise now.
Oh,
it was Pike, number 1. Even I have some issues with the Spock, but fewer issues than the Abramverse Spock.
Well, I will agree with that. Although, again, you'll see in the short treks when you eventually see them, I was not crazy. There's a number 1 Spock short trek that I really found objectionable. There's a need to explain Spock's spying in the cage. And I don't know if you saw, Michael Chabon did a very interesting interview in The New Yorker, I think. And it's sad because his father is passing away and may have already done so. I'm not sure. But and he talks about how important Star Trek was to him and his father. But he was telling his father that I'm working on Star Trek and I want to solve that mystery of why Spock was smiling in the cage. And it's there's no mystery to be solved.
The mystery is that, they said number 1's not going to be there. You're not going to have a female first officer. But Roddenberry liked that personality in the first officer, so he took it out of number 1 and gave it to Spock.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a first draft of Spock. That's what we're seeing in the cage. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. And I love the way they used the cage in the Menagerie 2-parter, because it really does look like, even though, isn't it interesting, it was only like 2 years before the first episode of the Shatner Star Trek, and it looks like it's 10 years older than just everything about it. I don't know why. It just does.
Because it had a way lower budget because Lucille Ball greenlit it on the name without realizing what it actually was. What the first time she saw it and she saw Star Trek, she said great and greenlit it with a slightly lower budget than they asked for. Because in her mind, it actually became Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. When they handed her Star Trek, she's like, what is this? This is Star Trek that you approved. And she thought it was going to be like a Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous show.
Celebrity show. Yeah, exactly, man. She's a celebrity.
But she's like, no, but you know what? I like this. And that's part of the reason they got the second pilot. Part of it was because CBS was looking at the success of Doctor Who and wanted something else that could travel from locale to locale. And part of it was Lucille Ball saying, yeah, this has potential, but it needs a bigger budget to do it.
I wonder if that's true.
And selling TVs.
I wonder if that's true because I forgive me, but I think in our usual American ignorance of anything else that's happening in the world, I don't know if Doctor Who was on the radar of American television back in the 60s.
The story I heard that I can't verify was that not only was that part of the reason CBS was willing to look at a second pilot, that's why they demanded that they graft on the scene at the end of episode 3 where they figure out how to travel in time.
Interesting. Wow.
They do that gravitational slingshot in the third produced episode.
Absolutely.
And then go back, and nothing happens of it there, but it's just establishing they have the option to do more of that anthology show.
Oh, dude. Seriously, I love the way they just stumbled on time travel, and that very quietly in the subsequent time travel episodes it'd be using Spock's slingshot theory. We were able to go back to the 60s. I mean, it kills me. I love that they do that. And, of course, my favorite of the early ones, Tomorrow is Yesterday, with Captain Christopher.
Yeah.
I love that. I always did love that episode. And I actually like, for the most part, I like the improvements that they've made on the effects. I don't find them intrusive, and I think they're fun. And in some episodes, like Tomorrow is Yesterday, but also the Doomsday Machine, holy shit, they make such a great difference. And it really is exciting to see the better special effects for those episodes. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of the orbits, because it doesn't look nearly as stodgy as it did going around. Now, I had a friend who worked not just in visual effects in general, but he ran the company that did a lot of the visual effects for the director's cut DVD or motion picture.
Of the first movie. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't a fan of that one. I knew him through a Larry Niven fan email group.
Okay.
So he was not a fan of the original series effects because of the resolution. Sure. He was cranky that when Paramount was doing the director's cut, they would not budget for Blu-ray level effects, only DVD. So that's a main reason why we don't have a DVD of the director's cut of the original series, of the original movie, is because they would have to recommission those effects. Because they were cheaper the first time.
Okay, I thought with the re-release of the movie for the 40th anniversary in 2019, I thought they did do a DVD of it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I might have missed the Blu-ray on that. It was just last year. But yeah, if it came out, then it's because they recommissioned all the effects because they didn't pay for Blu-ray the first time.
Definitely not for the director's cut. Probably only for the original version of it.
Yeah, the original version because they had film masters, but for the director's cut, they said, just produce it at DVD level.
Wow.
So the theatrical release, they could do Blu-ray at no extra cost. I've got that on Blu-ray.
I'm going to have to rebuy the director's cut because I don't know if I still have it or not on DVD. I was able to snag a good deluxe edition of Free Enterprise, Rob Burnett's movie, which is still on like Anchor Bay. I forget which company put it out because it was an independent production and not tied to a big studio.
Yeah, I bought it once on VHS and my copy was defective. I got a previously viewed from a video store.
Sure.
And then I went to watch it and it choked halfway through because it was wrinkled and went to take it back to the store, get it swapped, and by that time that store had gone out of business. So.
Well, sure. Absolutely. My God.
That was the era.
Now you're rolling. I still have a VCR, but certainly if you buy a VCR that, a tape of something that isn't on DVD, you're definitely rolling the dice at this point. I can appreciate that. I don't know. So second season of Discovery, like you said, you named a bunch of characters that you liked.
Yeah. So I on the whole, it's better than the first season, but I don't think it would hold up on repeat viewings as much because it does have that mystery element, and I find a solution can make or break a mystery.
Sure.
So, I mean, the first half of that season I enjoyed more than the second half when they were actually exploring. But it's, yeah, I don't. If I were to rank it, I would say it's stronger than the worst of Trek that came before it on an episode by episode basis, but it's not a contender for all-time best series by a long shot.
No, I thought it frustrating and disappointing still. What was I going to say? The one episode that I will admit a sympathetic soft spot for was the Talos 4 episode. I think it was episode 7, where Pike gets to go back and have the great conversations with Vina again. But even in that episode, there were still a couple dumb things that it's like, well, you guys really didn't get what was happening in front of you on the either watching the Cage or the Menagerie, because the Telosians, and I know I've talked about this before on other shows, they as a race had devolved physically, but their brain, that's why their brains are so big. And they stopped using their bodies and only using their brains. So their species kind of atrophied and became smaller. And they hired, you can tell if you really look at the people, they're women in makeup with the big brains, but they're really tiny women. And again, the reason for that was to kind of give the subtext of, no, these are such powerful minds, they don't use their bodies anymore. That's why they need physical creatures to live vicariously through.
Yeah, it was a planet of Hector Hammonds.
Yeah, exactly. Attaboy. Very good Green Lantern reference. Well done. But instead, in the new episode, the Telosians are clearly men and basketball tall. It's just like, wait a minute. I didn't know you had the front line for the Houston Rockets over here. What the hell's going on, man? I'm like, you guys, again, they're not. That's what I'm saying. They really didn't study. It just seems to me they didn't study Star Trek. They really missed a lot of a lot. And where is that supposed Trek expert that supposedly has been in the room? Maybe it wasn't in the room for the second season, but that was another reassurance we kept getting with Discovery. Oh, we've got experts here that are checking what we're doing and everything. I mean, that's the thing. As you said earlier. Or I couched it as being PR when they say, oh, this is the first time this has ever been done. All of their PR is bullshit, whether it's true claims of doing things that have never been done before, or the other thing of, oh, no, we're watching continuity very closely. We're watching it really, really closely. You're not.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you're not.
Speaking as someone who knows people who were in the room when Alberta was developing its last curriculum,
okay,
you can have the experts in the room. That doesn't mean you're going to do what they're telling you or pay attention to what they're saying.
Yeah.
They may have had the experts in the room and go, okay, they said their piece, we're going to do what we want anyway.
Maybe, or no one's going to notice that. That's okay. We don't care about that. You and me and maybe two other nerds will notice that. That's no big deal.
Yeah, you go to Armageddon's IMDb page, you could find science advisors who got paid to advise that movie, who've got PhDs in astrophysics, and I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is the one who said there are more mistakes per minute in that movie than any other movie in Hollywood history. You can have them in the room, but if you're not listening to them, it doesn't matter.
Well, and if we're going to go there, then we may as well talk about time crystals and, again, comparisons to Star Wars. I'll accept those triangle cubes that we got in Last Skywalker because Star Wars is more about fantasy than it is hard sci-fi. Okay, I don't need to know how the stuff works. Star Trek really goes out of its way to explain its pseudoscience. And to suddenly have time crystals with the Klingons, it's just like, again, oh, F you. What? No, I don't believe you. I'm sorry, I don't believe you.
Yeah, that's a lot of things writing, didn't work. The Talos 4 episodes.
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
It was nice to revisit. I loved when they had that previously on segment and actually brought it up from the Cage. That was nice.
Oh, I thought so too. I thought that was a nice nod as well.
Yeah, but then when you get in, and not just changing the Telosians, like Vina, aside from pretty blonde with this haircut, there was almost nothing in common. Like the new Vina didn't even resemble the old Vina, which
that's tough.
I mean, granted, neither does Ethan Peck really resemble Spock, but
yeah, I mean, Susan George was really a distinctly beautiful woman. I believe. Oh no, Susan Oliver. Pardon me. Melissa George was who played Vina in the new one, and yeah, I think that's a tough order, man. I mean, because really, Anson Mount doesn't really look like. I don't think he looks like Jeffrey Hunter at all. Jeffrey Hunter has completely different eyes. Jeffrey Hunter was leading man, good looking. I mean, he's Jesus, for God's sake, King of Kings, and a ton of great films prior to doing The Cage. And I can't blame his agent wife for going, hey, screw this TV stuff. You're a movie star. What the hell are you doing? Next thing. Let's go. So,
yeah. Although, I mean, had she realized what this particular franchise would have become.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I don't know. And maybe, Jeffrey Hunter would have been mourned. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten, the 50-plus years we've gotten of William Shatner, for better or for worse. I'll say for better. I love William Shatner. I know he's bombastic and ridiculous and crazy, but...
Yeah, but so's Kirk, so it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly, man. Well, it comes down to what he says, as I said with Rob Burnett in the movie Free Enterprise, that underlines Shatner as much as James Kirk, when he says, I know it's ridiculous to want to do a 6-hour Shakespeare movie, but I think I can do it. And it just, the way his voice drops, and it's just like, yeah, man, you can. It's like, I think I can climb that wall. Of course you do, man. Go, climb that wall. We're right behind you. Move.
Oh, yeah, and with all of this, I will never begrudge an actor for taking a job, even if, there's rumors that Brent Spiner is not a sci-fi fan, but he doesn't let it show in his performance. No, that's what matters.
Back. Good Lord. He's one of the best things about Independence Day. I love when he shows up. That's fantastic.
I know I missed you. Have you had a chance to talk to J.K. Woodward about meeting Brent Spiner?
No, I want to have J.K. back. I feel bad for my friends, and this may sound condescending, but I really don't mean it to, that really love Discovery. And it kind of hurts them. I'm so negative about Discovery. I think he and oh, God damn it, Matthew, Superman artist. Why am I, shame on me, I'm blanking on my buddy. But Matthew, he and I really bonded over Star Trek prior to Discovery, and we loved just quoting episodes to each other. At one point, it was like, John, I know you don't like the show. It's bumming me out. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Matthew Clark.
Okay.
So yeah, Matthew Clark.
You beat me to it. I was checking my database here.
Matthew Clark, absolutely. So, I really, that's great. And I seriously, as soon as we met each other, it's like, oh, you like Star Trek? Oh, yeah, man. Oh, sit down. And then 3 hours later, oh, man, we'll talk at next con we're at together. We'll hang out more. Oh, absolutely. Okay. So.
Yeah. Well, when you get a chance to talk to J.K. Woodward again, it happened at the Edmonton Comics and Entertainment Expo.
So that's C2E2.
Yeah, that's right. The Edmonton one is right where I live.
Oh, so I'm at Edmonton show. Excuse me. I thought you were doing C2E2 there. Go on.
No, they had Brent Spiner there, and it's. J.K. Woodward and I, over the span of the 2 days, ended up talking for about an hour and a half because. Partly because we get along, and partly because they kept coming back because his neighbor had massive flight problems. So I don't want to call him up by name because he didn't get to his table until on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday con. He showed up after lunch Sunday.
Okay.
Because he was over a day late because of his flight, and then he decided. You
said massive. I thought you said NASA. You said massive flight.
Yeah, massive. So it's
okay.
So he did that, and then decided.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So he spent Saturday holed up in his hotel room finishing the commissions before he got to the con floor.
I understand. Absolutely.
But yeah, Brent Spiner came over and introduced himself to J.K. Woodward at that con. I'll leave the rest for Woodward to tell because that's his story, but it was an awesome story.
Oh, I have no doubt. Honestly, J.K.'s adaptations of Star Trek are so beautiful and so on point when it comes to capturing an actor's essence and being able to paint such strong likenesses. Really, that's more than half the battle in terms of a great comic book adaptation. You know what I'm reading is Year 5, and I've read the first 9 issues of the IDW series.
Okay,
and it's the classic series in its 5th and final year. Final year of the first mission, and I love it. I think it's great. I always was a big fan as well of the novel The Lost Years.
Okay.
Which take place right after the mission, the 5-year mission ends, and kind of shows how Kirk winds up as a behind a desk admiral and what happens to everybody, and how Spock kind of becomes less enchanted with the Federation and more interested in getting back to his Vulcan roots. It's very interesting. And McCoy. It's really cool how you see kind of the three slowly kind of come apart, and it's not a sad story. It's just different. So, and Riley, remember Lieutenant Riley or Ensign Riley, who was on the Kodos planet and stuff, and he's affected by the spores and has the ship under control. Or one more time, and he sings.
Yep,
I'll take you away, Kathleen. Yeah, Riley becomes Admiral Kirk's secretary or whatever, frontman at Starfleet, and they're working together, which is kind of cool seeing Riley and Kirk back together again.
Okay, cool. And
it's
for the listeners, The Lost Years by J.M. Dillard.
Yes,
I just checked; it is available on Scribd, SCRIBD.com. It's like Netflix for books.
Big proponent of Scribd lately. I got your message on Facebook. Go ahead and you can give the Scribd plug if you want. That's cool.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's like Netflix for books. Most of the major publishers are here, and I'm finding not only do they have a huge amount of Star Trek novels, including that one. That's where I'm reading the Desperate Hours Discovery novel.
Outstanding.
I also just found out that you have to search for Big Finish for some reason instead of Doctor Who, but they've got a huge number of the Big Finish audio dramas.
That's amazing.
In there, so.
I keep trying to get Nicholas, and I'm forgetting Nicholas Briggs.
Yes.
Yeah. I keep trying to get him on Word Balloon. We have enough mutual friends that work over at Big Finish that he has entertained the idea, but I haven't been able to get him to come and talk to me. So I hope he still will.
Get Slot to give him a call.
Well, among others, no. Slot's done he's done his own work for me, absolutely, and a couple others as well. But yeah, no, I'm a massive fan of not only their Doctor Who stuff. I thought their Prisoner adaptation was very ambitious, and I think succeeded in a lot of ways the Jim Caviezel show didn't, frankly.
Yeah, I'm open to hearing all their stuff. It was a price thing. I got a pile of the Doctor Who's. I got 40 of them discounted.
I understand.
In a sale. So that's one of the reasons I'm happy to see them here, because I think it's $10 a month US or $13 Canadian for this first month free.
Scribd. Yeah, Scribd. No, I hear you, man. That's cool. And I know they have a lot of comic book publishers over there as well.
Yeah, they've got a lot of Marvel stuff. That's what originally drew my attention to them. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I know, but hey, do you ever watch the television Prisoner?
That's in that pile of stuff I've bought that I haven't gotten to yet. So I got the complete series on an iTunes sale, but I'm behind.
Okay. Got to tell you, man, that's one of the greats of the '60s spy shows.
That's what I keep hearing.
So unique, yeah. I mean, it really was distinct, and it really it was incredibly bold television for 1967, ridiculously so.
Yeah, everything I've heard says I'm going to like it, but it's probably best to binge it when my wife is at work and I'm not.
Probably because it is at a '60s pace, so I can appreciate that. I'd even say there's one that's 17 episodes, and you can easily knock off probably 10 and get the whole story. But that said, I still think all 17 are absolutely worth watching. But I was, man, I'll tell you, I've always been a McGowan fan. When I was a very little kid, they were rerunning his previous show, Secret Agent, Danger Man, as it's known in England. I don't know what it was known as in Canada, but here it was Secret Agent.
It would have been Secret Agent here because we get almost everything is imported from the U.S. There's a couple things that CBC brings over from the BBC, but yeah.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. That was a great straight up spy show, Secret Agent, and then Prisoner totally just knocks the concept on its ear and really just is insanely great and so psychedelically fantastic in a 60s way. It's incredible. So yeah, I've always been a fan, and also him in Night Station Zebra and when he's the bad guy in Braveheart and Silver Streak. I mean, so many great McGowan performances.
Oh, yeah.
I just love the guy. I just found a British adaptation of a play that he did with John Gielgud, and it's conversations with George Bernard Shaw and some museum curator. Mm-hmm. And it's literally just these three characters in the play, and it's from the early 90s, so both Gielgud and McGowan are definitely in their advanced ages and stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
McGowan had the chops to stand with Gielgud. I mean, he's certainly very highly regarded in British circles, and as much for stage as television and film. So yeah, he was amazing. I'm a big McGowan fan at the end of the day. Good Prisoner tangent. Couldn't help it. Had to.
Yeah, so. Peter Falk was a big fan too.
Yes, constant guest star on Columbo. Absolutely, even into the 90s Columbos and stuff.
Yeah, and if you haven't read Just One More Thing, which is Peter Falk's autobiography, one of the reasons that they kept bringing Patrick McGoohan back is that if they had a script that wasn't working, they figured you hire McGoohan as a director. He will not only also play the villain, but he will read that script and rewrite it for free because he doesn't want to do a bad script, and he's brilliant enough he would fix it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So when they had a weak script, Falk would call up McGoohan and say, "Hey, I got a villain I think you'd be great at." Send him the script, hire McGoohan to direct, and he'd get everything.
Wow. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and see specifically which episodes he probably fixed, because they were all fantastic. And I mean, the best one is the one By Dawn's Early Light, where he plays the commander of a military academy that commits a murder. And that's a tremendous one. And they all are. I mean, God, the one where he is kind of a secret agent and stuff is another great episode. They're all fantastic. Oof.
Oh yeah, there's not a bad Columbo. There's just that one near the end that had no right being a Columbo. It was clearly with the bride.
The bride gets kidnapped. I kind of liked it though, even though it broke format, because it was. I didn't mind seeing Columbo in a police procedural. No Time to Die, I believe, is what it's called, and I think you can find it on YouTube for people who are curious and don't want to spend the $2 to watch it on iTunes or rent it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not well made, but it was pitched as a 2-hour pilot for a new police series that didn't get picked up.
Oh, there you go.
They had a contract for so many Columbo made-for-TV movies, so they did enough a rewrite to turn it into a Columbo.
Wow, interesting.
There you go.
Because Ed McBain's 87th Precinct novels, I'm still stunned that somebody hasn't made a television show of that. It might be like Sherlock in Elementary, where people are just like, hey, we can do our own thing, and we don't have to do what McBain demands we do or whatever. I have no idea. But those books are such great police procedural novels. They're fantastic. And and that's kind of what that Columbo reminded me of. So it was okay in my book. You know what? I'll tell you a 70s show that I've been totally DVRing off one of the digital channels here is Police Story, the early anthology show that Joseph Wamba was part of. And it's really great 70s police writing. And, I mean, it's an anthology show, so every week it's a different star and different cast.
Yeah, I used to watch it on A&E Sunday mornings in the 90s.
There you go, man. Oh, good Lord. I love – see, attaboy, Blaine. I figured. I know who I'm talking. Much like Burnett. Like when I talk to Robert, it's like, I know who I'm talking to. It's cool. Yeah, I love that show. And there's a lot of really off-the-wall ideas. There's one where Gabe Kaplan, Welcome Back, Kotter, is kind of a cop that's crazy and acting really weird, and they don't know what to do with him. He's just acting very strangely and stuff. No, it's a very interesting show. And really, some of my favorite older actors that are in their senior years showing up, and also very young actors doing their first roles. Pretty cool. Unbelievable. Anyway, what else with Star Trek? So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Picard if you got time. I don't want to mess you up if it's getting late.
Well, I got time. So
all right. So Picard. Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued. I'm hopeful. I like what I've seen so far as the trailers go, and I've seen more than the first trailer. I'm very hopeful, and even the subsequent trailers have made me more comfortable with the idea, and not that I was never comfortable with it. I'm okay with a Starfleet that is different from the one that whenever Patrick Stewart left or Picard left Starfleet. I can appreciate that politics might change a bit in some way. Yeah,
I am cautiously optimistic because, I mean, on the one hand, I mean, we talked about the problems with, one of the problems with Discovery is that it's really the Michael Burnham show when everyone else takes a back seat. But it's not called Star Trek Burnham. It's called Star Trek Discovery.
Right.
This is Star Trek Picard.
Yep.
So, yeah, we know Picard is going to be in the front seat. Even though Next Gen, I mean, like you said, all the shows prior to this have had some degree of ensemble. The first was like Kirk and Friends. But aside from Spock, and then in the last two seasons, McCoy, like everyone else was on an even keel, and they all had their moments. Like, they'd have times when Spock told Uhura, "You are the only person in Starfleet I would trust to do this."
Yep.
When she's jury-rigging a panel.
Yeah, or Sulu's stuck on the planet and, freezing his ass off or whatever, and or Chekhov has his love story in the apple and things like that. Sure.
Yeah, and they don't just have moments of storytelling, but moments where they save the day.
Yeah.
So everyone is competent in their domain.
Sure.
I mean, one of the best episodes of Next Gen, or at least one of the ones that's the most fun to watch, I think, is Disaster, where you take all these people who are incredibly competent in their own domain and then make everyone a fish out of water. So Worf is the one who's doing the medic thing, bracing for the wound and then trying to deliver a baby. And, Picard is the one with the kids.
Yep. No, and you're right. No, everyone is in their little pocket of the Enterprise with a huge problem, but they're all competent enough to solve the problem and do it with teamwork and a lot of even Picard, even Worf and Keiko. Push, Keiko, push.
Yeah,
I am pushing.
Yeah, you bore that well when he snaps the leg back in place.
That's right. Oh my God. No, I mean, seriously, and truly, that is one of the biggest things about Discovery that makes me tear my hair out, is their portrayal of the Klingons. It's like, wow, man, you guys, again, you don't get it. It's like, they're this barbaric race, but there's this stoic, kind of pride, there's an integrity about the way the Klingons were always portrayed. And that doesn't exist in this version. Or if it does, they're the exceptions to the other people. And I said, if you had said Discovery in the future, I could see a xenophobic mentality suddenly run through and go, something, we've lost our way. Kalis wouldn't be chummy with as many aliens as we are. Or whatever. I mean, I could see that kind of rationale down the line. But and I understand there should be suspicion and stuff. But again, the way that the Klingons have been portrayed, even in the Kirk show, they were much more noble than these cannibalistic assholes that we get in Discovery.
Yeah, I can't think of a single Klingon on this show who could get a laugh by saying, "I protest. I am not a merry man." Whereas, I mean, that was Worf's line, but I could see that from J.G. Hertzler's character. I could see that from...
Well, again, even going back to the original three captains, Kor, Kang, and Koloth, from the original series.
Who were written completely in character when they showed up on DS9, yes.
Absolutely, and were fantastic. But yeah, and especially like Kang. Kang is a noble guy. Like in Day of the Dove, you feel for Kang. And and especially, we don't need your help to hate these people, or however he says it. And Kor loves, he loves life. I mean, and everything in Errand of Mercy shows all that. And Captain Koloth is vain and perturbed and just as happy to jab Kirk with words as he is any sort of physical attack. And it's like, no, there's panache to these Klingons, those original series Klingons. Yeah. And again, these other ones are just everything. And why did you have to change the look? I'm assuming it was for toys. Big mistake, because I don't see those new Klingon toys flying off the shelves.
See, I thought that they changed the look because the storyline with Voq would not work if it was only the top half of his head under makeup. Right.
I don't know, man. Like those and the outfits too. It's like, how are these guys fighting in these stiff-collared kind of like armor things that they seem more trapped in than would be easy to move around and be as physical as Klingons can be?
Yeah, but how did Michael Keaton Batman turn his head?
Different character. I understand, and you're not wrong. That's fair, but I'll keep it just to Star Trek, man. That's what I'm saying. Again, there's already established things that they could have done. And God, the way they solved those problems, I think, in the Deep Space Nine and also Enterprise years, when they kind of explained, well, how come some of the Klingons have ridges and some of them look more humanoid? There was a great explanation. It's like, all right. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, for all its problems on Enterprise, especially those first two seasons, Trek generally takes until season 3 to find its footing.
True.
And... Yeah. I mean, I think the original series is the only one that had its weakest season as season 3.
Yeah, and yet, as everyone who's a Star Trek fan points out, as weak as Season 3 was, there are exceptional episodes in Season 3. Enterprise Incident with the Romulans, great episode. I like, wasn't it For I've Touched the Sky and the World is Hollow, the McCoy episode? Isn't that from that season too, where he thinks he's dying?
I believe it is, yeah.
There you go. I mean, no, there's a lot of really... And I'll even confess to thinking Spock's brain was fun. It's ridiculous, but I do think it's fun.
Yeah, you know what? Spock's brain, I love the conversation on the Mission Log podcast about that, because when they sat down to do it, they realized, you know what? Even though the production leaves a lot to be desired, they were shooting for the fences. There were some really good ideas in there.
I love when McCoy, halfway through working on him, is starting to forget how to reattach his brain. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, like it's
that's
moments
a great McCoy's scary moment, Yeah, know, that's like Burnett and the Inglorious Treksperts, they kind of shit on Search for Spock, Star Trek 3, because they're like, so much of it looks like it was shot on a soundstage. And it's like, yeah, but I really like the story. And, Christopher Lloyd was probably miscast, but I kind of like him as Krug. I think he's a decent, this is your adversary. I don't know. I didn't mind him. And there's, again, so many great scenes. And Stealing the Enterprise is such a great scene. Oh, my God. And everything they do leading up to that and everything is so great. And even that initial battle where, yes, the circuits overload, but before they overloaded stuff, that, it's just the 6 of them or whatever, or 5 of them against a full Klingon complement, and that they're,
Yeah.
Nice shooting, Mr. Scott. Just good stuff, man.
Well, I'll always have a soft spot for 3, because that was my introduction to the movies.
Wow, cool.
I was 1 when the motion picture came out.
I understand.
And so I did not see that in theaters.
What was your first James Bond movie in the theater?
Oh, in the theaters? That was GoldenEye.
Okay, I was going to guess it was GoldenEye. All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It wasn't my first. I could be pedantic. So when A View to a Kill was coming out, actually the year before, the local TV station, I was in first grade. Okay. And the local TV station was showing all the classic Universal monster movies at midnight every night on the weeknights.
Awesome. Great.
So I went to my mom and said, hey, can I watch these? And she said, you're not allowed to watch movies when they're on that late. I took that literally. I was the only one in the house who knew how to run the Betamax, so I recorded them. I'm a morning person. I was up at 3 a.m. and watched them all before school the next day. She said when, not if. She said when. So then when they did the same thing with all the James Bond movies before A View to a Kill came out the next day, so I did the next year. So I did the same thing. I taped them all, and I watched them all in sequence in second grade before school every day over the course of a month.
Hilarious. That's fantastic. I saw the Bond movies on TV when I was very young as well. The first one I saw in the theater, and again showing my age, was Live and Let Die, Moore's first movie. And, and it's interesting now because I know it's kind of an embarrassing movie because of the blaxploitation angle of it and a lot of the other stereotypical things that are in the movie. It was of its time. I mean, it really was. You could put it up against Shaft and a lot of the blaxploitation films, and it would just be another, kind of, it's more of a grindhousey James Bond movie. But I think that's kind of interesting because of that, to be honest. And also, Bond in his action suit looked very Nick Fury-ish. Yeah. I really felt that, young Roger Moore James Bond, specifically in Live and Let Die, because even by Man with the Golden Gun, even though it was like the next year or whatever, he seemed a little older and stuff. Yeah,
that one, I watched them all last year on Blu-ray again, and that one...
Pretty weak.
Yeah, Moore really rubbed me the wrong way, because there's one scene when they're on the boat, and you know how there's the girl who was undercover as his romantic interest?
Britt Eklund?
I think so, yeah.
Goodnight? Her name was Goodnight, I believe?
Yeah, I think so. What I remember clearly is when they were on the boat with everyone who knew that it was a farce and she was an agent, Roger Moore just puts his hand on her butt.
Oh, my.
And the look on her face, it didn't look like she was expecting it, and just let the cameras roll, so that to me that felt more like
that's interesting.
More being a lech than anything else.
Wow, I'm going to have to relook at that. That's very interesting. That's Britt Eklund, the former Mrs. Peter Sellers.
Okay.
And she was quite an actress and model in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. James Bond did a really good job of finding great models who were a variety of level of actresses.
Well, and especially those first, and I'll include the Lazenby movie, the first 6 movies, I think especially were very international in their production, obviously from a locale standpoint, but also really cherry-picking models and actors and actresses from other countries. And I think doing a really good job of it. And really, I mean, we got introduced to some very interesting Italian stars and some very interesting, the Asian stars that were in, oh God, now I'm blanking on the fourth movie, the Hong Kong movie, or the Japan movie. Not For Your Eyes Only.
No.
For Your Eyes Only. No.
Is it You Only Live Twice?
You Only Live Twice, of course.
Yeah.
Sung by Nancy Sinatra.
Yeah, there was. Every one of them, viewed by the standards of its time, was a really good movie until Moonraker.
Yeah, I was just talking to, in Moonraker, yeah. But to Albert Broccoli's credit, after Moonraker, he's like, okay, we can't go any further with gadgets because, we're already at sci-fi levels and this is ridiculous. We gotta pull back and get back to what we were. And so I thought For Your Eyes Only was really this great. It's truly one of my favorite Moore movies because it's very grounded. It's a very simple and good spy story. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact, too, that they finally are showing that Bond is getting a little old to have these young ingenues around. And I love that skater that literally flings herself at James Bond every time she sees him. And and just the look on his face of, all right. If I were 20 years younger, maybe. But this is kind of embarrassing. Take it easy, kid. And I also, in reading Moore's autobiography, even starting with For Your Eyes Only, he's like, don't you think I'm kind of getting old? Shouldn't you be moving on to somebody else? And they throw more money at him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, I will never blame an actor for paying the bills.
Yeah, man.
Not all of them are like Frank Sinatra when he was offered Die Hard, but
that is amazing, and I can't imagine what it would be like. And I got to tell you, apparently, right up till the end with Sinatra, his last feature film, The First Deadly Sin, that's a great cop movie. And if you've never seen it, I'm speaking to listeners as well. I can't recommend it enough because it's this great early '80s police procedural where he's a police detective, and it's the cliche, I'm 3 days till retirement, but it's Sinatra, and he's terrific in it. And he's really low-key and good, and there are scenes where he'll enter a room and the score is playing really heavy, and you expect him to break into some sort of sad ballad, and he never does. But that said, it's truly, I mean, he really did. I mean, he was at times a great actor and capable of great performances. So I'm a big fan of Sinatra until the end. I really am.
Oh yeah, and I appreciate. I mean, just in case listeners aren't aware, the novel that Die Hard was based on was actually a sequel, and Frank Sinatra was the lead when they adapted the first movie. So
right, The Detective. Yeah, his movie from the '60s, The Detective. That's right.
Right. So when they're doing Die Hard 20 years later under contract, they had to offer it to him first. Rumor has it that Fox's plan was, if he says yes, we'll just delay production until he dies because he's old. But he read the script and said, you've really got something here, but we all know that it should be played by a younger man. You've done your due diligence. I'm saying no. I'll be there to see it when it comes out.
Yeah. I mean, well, again, great documentary, by the way, if I haven't talked about it on the air. Sinatra in Palm Springs. And the only place I've seen it, it's not even, or if it is on DVD, it might be, you can buy it or rent it from Vimeo. And it is so worth watching. And it's literally about his 3 Palm Springs homes. And it's a really interesting look into Sinatra's private life from the 40s till the end. So like literally like the last almost 50 years of his life. And it's very, very interesting. A lot of people, great stories about him and unbelievable, like you see his homes and stuff. I'm not one of those people that watches, let's look at celebrity homes. But it was really, really interesting and very much a cool Sinatra exploration. So what else would I want to ask you about Star? Oh, so Picard, we kind of trailed off.
We did. So it's, I mean, for me, I'll be checking it out on release and I'll be somewhat optimistic, but less optimistic than I would have been had they launched Picard before Discovery.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't know. I always understand why they start a new Star Trek with a new cast and a new idea. It makes sense. It's okay. I mean, less preconceived notions, hopefully. And certainly this generation of fandom, because we're so vocal, because of social media, because of things like podcasts and YouTube, there's just a louder voice for detractors and stuff. It is what it is, but by the same token, it's like, hey, that is the core of what you want to create in terms of getting the foundation of an audience big enough to make your show profitable. So I can appreciate the frustration, but by the same token, it's like you gotta, again, I think, especially in terms of Star Trek, when it wasn't just 6 movies like Star Wars. I mean, it literally is over 700 hours of scripted material between the films and the television series. So
I get that it's definitely harder to break new ground, but I don't know. We'll see.
It is what it is. I mean, again, that's why the big mistake, I think, was starting Discovery in the past. It's like if you had set Discovery in the future, a lot of my complaints about it would go away because, like, all right, well, much like The Next Generation, it's a different era. Yeah. Things have changed.
Yeah, had you come to me when they were doing Discovery and said, do a Star Trek show, I would have tried to do something very different. I would have actually see if we could get Cirroc Lofton back and make it about adult Jake Sisko, not a member of Starfleet, exploring non-Federation space, writing his stories.
That would be great.
Going for inspiration and just show a totally different part of that universe.
I would have watched that.
If you told me you have to make it a prequel and you have to show what it's like for the Earth to be in war, I would say, okay, we can do that. Your series finale is Khan and his crew leaving Earth on the USS Botany Bay.
Okay.
And so tell the eugenics war story.
I got no problem. I'd even be for the first Romulan war, frankly.
Yeah, you could do that, but there's not. I am less interested in trying to dance between the raindrops of what we've already got than I am in something that's set someplace new.
Sure. No, I agree with that as well. And no, and I've yet to read Greg Cox's con books that do kind of explain the eugenics war and everything, and also how real world events of the 90s could have happened with us not realizing they were part of a more covert, almost like a Cold War regarding the eugenics war. There might have been a war that we weren't, that wasn't in the papers, but the governments were certainly aware of what was happening. And it also really involved Gary Seven, and that is kind of a walking between the raindrops sort of story. But I think Greg Cox did it, as I understand it from the people who read the books, they loved it. And in fact, I believe when they were talking about Nicholas Meyer doing a Khan prequel story, that a lot of it was going to be in that same era, and that would have been very interesting to explore.
Sure.
I don't know. But I am with you in terms of going way back and going much earlier. No, I don't know. I we'll see what happens with the 3rd season of Discovery and Picard. Like I said, I think I'm intrigued by the broad strokes. I like the return of the characters that they've already announced. I'll be interested to see how things develop beyond that in terms of the surprises that they're holding on to. If there are more cast members that will show up that we didn't hear about yet. And obviously they've already not only booked season 2, but season 3 as well.
Yeah, and from what I hear, that was where Patrick Stewart was willing to commit, was to a 3-season arc.
Yes, I heard that too. And frankly, he's 82, so let's hurry up and get him on camera while we can.
Yeah.
Frankly. I mean, Jesus, God, I was really sad when Connery retired, more than 10 years ago. But I can also appreciate people that are like, yeah, I made enough money, I just want to relax.
Yeah, especially at that age. Hackman, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sad because these are titans as far as actors go. And you want people like Alec Guinness and Gielgud that kept doing it as long as they possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Or George Burns,
yeah,
from a comedic standpoint. I don't know. I mean, God, he looks amazing for his age, Patrick Stewart. And I'm sure he's in excellent health. I liked his show, the comedy that he did, that ran here on Stars, and I'm blanking on the name. Blunt Talk, I believe it was called.
Okay.
Where he was a political talk show host. I thought it was a fun, kind of crazy show. I love anytime he shows up. I'm happy as hell. He was obviously amazing in the X-Men movies and great in Logan and everything.
Oh yeah, Logan is amazing.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I think we're kind of we've run our Star Trek course, but
yeah, unless we want to open the Doctor Who can of worms, I think we're good.
I have to confess, I haven't finished. I'm only a half hour into the first episode of the new season. I like what I've seen so far, and I found it intriguing, only having seen the first half hour, that because I really did bail on the first season with Jodie Whittaker. I like Jodie Whittaker. Mm-hmm. I didn't like a lot of the early episodes, and I got bored. So I stopped watching the first season. I guess it was suggested in the first season that Unit and Torchwood no longer exist. Because the fact that it's an MI6 story, and they finally do say that, what about Torchwood and Unit? And Stephen Fry kind of spells that out for him, that they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. So far I've seen every surviving episode of Doctor Who except Orphan 55, which aired
last week's.
Yeah, that aired yesterday at the time of recording, just for the sake of the listeners.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yes, excuse me, it was yesterday.
Yeah. So I've seen the two-part Spyfall. If you're only half an hour in, you may not have seen the James Bond spoof that's in there, which I was expecting because, so close to Skyfall, you can't totally ignore that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and they telegraphed that she's going to see some super agent friend of hers, so I'm assuming that it's going to be some sort of Bond pastiche, which I look forward to. That'll be fun.
Okay, I won't say anything else about Season 2 then for you, because I know you and I are on the same page with spoilers. We would much rather see the creative output unfold as the creators want us to see it, and not bits and pieces and snippets.
Yeah. No. And I can't stress enough, I like her. And I like her approach to the Doctor.
Yeah, I think Whittaker is a fantastic Doctor. I was struggling last season to say, is it really weaker than the episodes that came before, or does it just feel that way because I prefer more serialized storytelling? And Chibnall's first season is very episodic.
See, and I don't mind that. I wouldn't mind episodic. I just didn't care for the stories, and also that suggestion that maybe the Doctor was originally a woman. I'm like, okay, now you're going too far. It's like, come on, man. It's great. It's fine. I'm thrilled that now, the Doctor has become a woman. That's terrific. That's wonderful. But, she was, originally she was a woman. No.
Well, yeah,
don't do that. Please don't do that.
Well, no.
That's not necessary.
Yeah, they later wrote that off as, one of those things was true, and so it was in the list. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Because,
I love
Missy. I love the Master as a woman as well, just like I loved when in Thor they made, when Straczynski made Loki a woman. That was terrific. That's great.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I think was actually Brevoort's idea, and why I have always suspected. I've always thought that since he came in knowing that one more day was coming, I thought the talisman Loki gave Peter at the end of that story arc when Loki showed up in Straczynski's Spider-Man, and Loki said, "Okay, I owe you a favor." I always thought that was going to be what he originally had planned to undo the marriage.
Yeah, that's his back door.
Yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
Apparently he was planning to use Loki there, but they decided because Loki was a woman at the time, because Loki had possessed Sif's body, for those who aren't caught up on it, they thought that was just too much to explain, and that's one of the reasons they went with Mephisto instead.
Interesting.
See, I had a hard time with that story because I don't see Peter signing on with Mephisto no matter what, but I would be willing to say Peter went to Loki and would have said, okay, my Aunt May is dying because people know my secret identity. You owe me. Make it so that no one ever knew my secret identity. And in doing so, we knew before Peter and Mary Jane got involved, Mary Jane had already figured it out. If that gets wiped out by accident, she wouldn't be as understanding when he disappears when the chips are down. Would not have seen him the same way, and that would undo the marriage because that would have a major impact on their romance. So that's the way I would have set it up, so that it would have been a consequence that he didn't foresee. And then he's like, okay, Aunt May's alive, turns to MJ, and she's like, oh, hey, Peter, haven't seen you in years. What's going on? And just crush him in that moment.
Interesting.
But I wasn't in editorial at the time.
Yeah, I wasn't a One More Day fan either. And that bothered me. You know what bothered me more, and I've talked about it, is that they had to retcon Betty Brant into just Peter's older sister sort of friend, rather than the fact that they dated, because it would have been inappropriate. And it's like, you guys are making it inappropriate. I'm like, Mary Jane could have been, first of all, Peter could have been 18, and rather Betty Brant could have been 19 or 20, and maybe she didn't go to college, and maybe she went to work at the Bugle right out of high school.
Actually,
and especially in those eras of the 60s and 70s where that wasn't uncommon. And I have a good friend who's in her 40s and faced that same problem in the 90s, and she went to work and didn't go to college.
Yeah, and
one of the smartest people I know, and a really great, very mature, always a very mature person for her age, and in terms of at least being able to handle herself. And it wouldn't have been the creep out that, like, again, they kind of made it. And it's like, Jesus, like, what's wrong with her being an old girlfriend that they're still friends? It's fine. She knows, Betty Brant should know Peter Parker, and better than just an older sister knowing her younger brother.
Yeah, and I had a friend who knows Spider-Man way more than I do, so I don't know how accurate his memory is on this. But that frustrated him because he thought that, whether Untold Tales Chapter 1, one of these that went back and told those stories, said that Betty Brant's mother passed away and she dropped out of high school without finishing and started working at the Bugle and was only 1 year older than Peter.
There you go.
Which would have fixed everything. And if that is true, because there were a couple things that were missed in the JMS run. Like, I know in one of the issues, Peter says, like, he was trying to give someone a false identity or a code name, and he says, yeah, go with Fitzgerald. That was Aunt May's maiden name, when Aunt May's maiden name was Riley. That's why Ben Riley did it.
Right.
That's why he chose that name.
That's right.
And I've heard that was changed in the trade, and I get it. You can't, I mean, JMS does a lot of research, but there's a lot of research to do, and I wouldn't blame him for not putting a lot of emphasis on the Clone Saga doing his research, because that's not one of the eras that people in general fondly remember.
No, I hear what you're saying. And also the Betty Brant stuff happened after Straczynski. It was part of Brand New Day.
Right,
and
yeah.
Like, along with getting rid of the marriage. So like, oh, and here's a couple other little tweaks we made. Peter and Betty never dated now. And it's like, oh, shut up. It's like, grow up. Good Lord. And again, just like you pointed out, that's the thing. And that's what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, she's 19. He's 18. Fine. Mm-hmm. That solves everything. I mean, my God, it is that simple. Whatever. Good Lord.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to have creepy relationships, you go back to Reed Richards telling Sue Storm, "I've loved you since the first day I met you," and then you find out the first day they met, he was a grad student and she was 10.
Yep. Or Professor X and Jean Grey.
Yeah, because
great thought bubbles from the early issues and stuff about how Professor X secretly loves Jean as well.
Yeah, issue 3. And I remember,
was it that third issue? There you go.
It was the third issue, and I remember going back and doing the math. Okay, for when this was published, and we knew it was like he got his powers from the atomic bomb project. I did the math on it, and being as favorable as I could make him 3 years older than his students.
Yeah, I don't even think that's likely. I mean, yeah,
that's awesome. As soon as you find out he served in World War II, I'm like, okay, if he signed up 2 days before they declared peace. So if he signs up in late 1945, what's the youngest he could be? That's
hilarious. Geez. Well, again, I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis married his cousin. That's his 14-year-old cousin. There you go. Not too many years before the Marvel Age began, so these things happen. Oh, well.
They did. I mean, Edwin...
In Roy Moore's America, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't understand.
Oh.
That's that senator from Alabama or whatever it was.
Oh.
That they discovered all the inappropriate relationships and things. Yikes.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, kids, not mocking the act, mocking the ridiculousness and sadness of the situation. Moving on. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see it with Picard, man. I'm sure you and I will check in with each other direct messaging or on public posts on Facebook, whether we like stuff or not. But, man, we're less than 2 weeks away. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's 10 days from today, at least for the Canadian premiere. I don't know if it's the 23rd worldwide, but here it's the 23rd.
It is. Yeah, it is. I believe it is the 23rd, and yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I would think we're now in the day and age where you got to go worldwide simultaneous release, or you just know whatever market gets it late is going to pirate.
Yeah, isn't that honestly? That is one of the accidental benefits from BitTorrenting was the BBC and American TV were kind of wising up, going, okay, we We want as many eyeballs that are going to get advertising dollars to watch this as possible. Maybe it's a good idea that we just start doing it all on the same day.
Oh, it's been going around before that, because I think the first movie that did the deliberate worldwide simultaneous release for this stated purpose to curb piracy was Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's interesting, and that makes sense. I remember, obviously, thinking of television more, just, all the Doctor Who struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And finally they gave up. And it's like, all right, it's all going to happen on England might get it a few hours earlier, but that's it. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Well, yeah.
Handle a few hours.
I remember going online trying to talk about the Doctor Who under the Christopher Eccleston era, and I've got American friends going, wait, you're getting that? I thought you were in Canada. I'm like, yeah, I am in Canada. Because Canada got it early with last-minute negotiations, because that was the year of the NHL strike. And CBC...
wow, good Lord, you guys really needed something else to watch. Jesus. I understand. No, I'm half serious in terms of that's clearly a problem. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I saw... Wait, now we just had a little hiccup as well.
A hiccup, yeah.
But we're back. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, at the time, CBC's top 3 rated shows were Hockey Night in Canada, Coronation Street, and the syndicated reruns of The Simpsons.
There you go.
So when they lost Hockey Night in Canada, in that order.
I'm sure.
So it's, Canadian,
National
British,
crisis.
U.S., and when they lost the only Canadian in the top 3, it was like, let's at least go British.
We'll give you 24 hours with Don Cherry. Don't worry. Okay, we will fill the void. Do not worry.
Oh, yeah, and some of us have a hard time with 24 seconds at Don Cherry.
Well, I understand. That's awesome, man. Well, again, now we're in this new age. It's interesting, and because I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention. Are we getting the full season, or are we getting 5 episodes and then a break, and we'll be back in the spring or summer? I
honestly don't know what the production schedule is on that. So I don't know if it's been shared or not.
Okay.
So I know. I mean, Doctor Who, obviously, we're getting them on a weekly thing because it's still broadcast.
No, but that's the one I specifically mean. Is it?
Sorry, I wasn't.
Are they breaking up the season, or are they giving us the full season starting now?
Yeah, my understanding is that they're powering straight through the whole season. That they discovered in Peter Capaldi's era, they basically pulled the fans and said, "Look, would you rather have it one continuous?" And the fans said yes. And they were cranky when they found out that meant 18 months between seasons. They're like, well, yeah, you're not changing our production time. It just means they're going to sit on the shelf longer.
Wow.
But, yeah, Capaldi was a great doctor. He was, I think, underserved by his scripts.
I agree, and man, I'll tell you those last couple episodes were fantastic.
Oh yeah,
and I loved the very last episode with the first Doctor. I thought was tremendous.
Yeah. What was it?
Twice Upon a Time or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It really, really excellent. And David, whatever his name is, that plays the William Hartnell Doctor, I can't think of a better actor. And I didn't even mind the guy they got for the 4 Doctors, or the 5 Doctors, Peter Davidson.
Yeah, was it Richard Hunnell? Or...
It wasn't Richard Hunnell. It was that's funny. I think that's one of or no, James Hunnell's the comic book writer. Maybe it was Richard Hunnell. I'm not sure. But again, I mean, it was tough. It's you're never going to replace William Hartnell, but I'll tell you, David, whatever his name is, does a hell of a job as the Doctor, and I bought him immediately. And boy, there's a case where they got somebody who at least somewhat does resemble William Hartnell.
Yeah,
when he was made up with the wig and everything. I mean, the eyes were certainly very close to Hartnell's eyes.
Yeah, and I loved that. What is it? The docudrama, the behind the scenes thing that he was in that came out with the Day of the Doctor.
Yeah. Brian Cox was Brian Clemens in it and everything, and that was terrific.
Oh yeah, and
Brady Lambert.
Yeah, William Russell was the security guard in his cameo. Which was
I forgot about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Ian.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, the single greatest companion, or the most important companion in the history of the series, as far as I'm concerned.
Ian Chesterton, interesting.
Yeah, you go back and watch those first few serials. The Doctor is not a hero. He is perfectly happy to hand over the TARDIS to the Daleks if they let him and his granddaughter live. He doesn't care about protecting the humans in that first Dalek story. He learns to be a hero from Ian Chesterton.
That's very interesting. I like that.
And that's why the story starts with when they pick up the teachers. He was already traveling with Susan, but that's not where the story began. The story began when Ian and Barbara join him.
Sure, yeah. I've loved they've made inserts, I know, for certain videos where they've found lost episodes, and Russell has reappeared as modern day Ian Chesterton, like in a study. I remember this one time, the Doctor and I, and the four of us, ... and they were great. And I also love the fact that Fraser Hines, who plays Jamie, will imitate Patrick Troughton for the Big Finish audios and stuff. And man, and as I'm sure you feel the same way, I am hoping for that crossover day when Sean Pertwee puts on a curly wig and plays his father and plays the Third Doctor, because he could do it. And it would be tremendous to see him as the Third Doctor. I got one opportunity to meet John Pertwee. He came to Chicago in the 20th anniversary year, and I got to meet Pertwee, Peter Davidson, and Tom Baker all that year at different conventions and appearances, and all of them were incredibly kind. But man, much like when I met Avery Brooks, when I met John Pertwee, it's like, oh no, this is the guy. Or when I was a little kid and I met Clayton Moore and Buster Crabbe at various times, it's like, that's Flash Gordon, that's the Lone Ranger, and certainly in John Pertwee's case, like, no, that's Doctor Who, man. Jesus, that was amazing meeting him. He was great, funny as hell. Couldn't have been a nicer, big gregarious guy. Very cool.
Yeah, I only had a chance so far to meet Tennant and Smith.
Although that doesn't suck.
No, and it was going to be Eccleston, but when he came out about his health issues and everything, that was 8 days before he was supposed to come to the Edmonton Expo, and he canceled his appearance.
Oh man, so, is that a current condition? Is he okay, or
it was something he's apparently mostly got a handle on, but he was struggling with anorexia when he was the Doctor.
Oh wow! I had no idea. Amazing.
Yeah,
no, and a great single season. I mean, I understood why he left. I wasn't happy about it, but then we got Tennant, and Tennant was such a great Doctor.
Oh yeah, I love Tennant. I
love Matt Smith too.
Yeah, I think Tennant was the better.
Oh, you dropped out. Are you back?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Tennant was the better Doctor, but I prefer the Matt Smith era because I think the scripts were stronger for the most part.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I mean, I kind of liked I liked both eras fine, and I did think that things got more interesting as Matt Smith continued. No, I enjoyed him. I felt the Rory Amy story outlived its welcome a little long. I feel the same way a bit about Clara as well.
Yeah, Clara, for a while, when she was like the mystery girl, how could she exist? There was something there. But it felt like once they solved that mystery, it took them all to figure out, well, what purpose does she serve now? Who is she?
Right, what do we do with her?
Yeah, she was more of a mystery than a character at first. And I do like towards the end they had that sorted out when they knew who she was. And she started coming into her own again. But yeah, there was definitely a lagging period in the middle for her.
It's a shame that John Hurd passed away because I enjoyed his War Doctor in Day of the Doctor. And also, I haven't heard the Big Finish episodes that he did, but I guess he did do a couple stories.
He did. I've heard that too, and I've heard they got Catherine Tate and David Tennant back to do them.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Again, that's the beauty of audio, man. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, you want to come back and do something you did 10 years ago? Yeah. All right, great.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And, God, the even better example, obviously, is Tom Baker and Louise Jameson and also the first Romana and the second Romana, for that matter.
Yep.
I had it bad for Lala Ward, the second Romana. Good Lord. She was adorable. Cute. And she's still a beautiful woman. My God. Still girl next door adorable.
Yeah, she is. I mean, my friends and I used to argue about who the most attractive companion was. I got a friend who was going Cara Gillan, and I'm like, it's between Freema Agumon and then and Mary Tam. And then we just stopped arguing when Clara came on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And what is her name?
Jenna Louise Coleman.
Jenna Louise. I thought it was Jenna Coleman. Okay, fine, because I wasn't sure if I was confusing her with Olivia Colman, the fine actor.
No, yeah, she was another one I was going to have a photo up with at the expo, but then she had to cancel because, was it the Friday she was supposed to show? Like, she was supposed to fly in on the Friday, do the Saturday and Sunday ops, or photo ops.
Yeah.
And that Friday was when they announced that she was leaving the show, so all of her appearances got canceled to the press tour to back that up. So it was just,
wow.
Had they announced it like 4 days later, we'd have had the photos. But
bummer. No, she's great. I got to meet Tegan and Nissa.
Okay.
They came to this one convention. They pretty much had all the Peter Davison regulars and
just
Harry.
like 10.
Well, that's true. Well, all right. So no, it was, and actually, so it was the people that were on the show at the moment. So it was Peter Davison, Nissa, Tegan, and then they had the Brigadier. Nick Courtney was amazing and such a sweet guy. And Ian Martin was there as well, as much for his writing as playing Harry.
Okay.
So that was cool, and that was one. And John Nathan Turner was with them as well.
Okay.
So that was cool. And we liked Johnny. We didn't, all the hate that came from John Nathan Turner later by the Brits. I understood it, and the show got hokey. It's such a shame because I wasn't a fan of the Sylvester McCoy stuff. But I like him as the Doctor. Again, kind of in the same way with Jodie Whittaker. I liked him. I just didn't like the stories.
Yeah, I think
until he got with Ace, and then it got okay.
Yeah, but I would say that the Seventh Doctor and Ace have some of the best Doctor-companion chemistry in the history of the series. Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to do that in stories like Survival, there's only so much you could do.
Sure.
With that.
Yeah, I really was never a fan of, and I don't even remember their names, the pantomime star that was with Colin Baker. I can't think of her name. And she was with McCoy early, but prior to him getting Ace.
Oh, the one who was really good at screaming and wearing tight pants and not much else.
Yep. Yeah, and doing somersaults and stuff, and she had her permed hair and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. Yeah, it worked for me. Colin Baker, I think, has gotten the greatest newfound respect because of the Big Finish dramas, because he is such a good Doctor. And man, there are a lot of really good Big Finish productions with him. And the one with him and Davros is truly one of my favorite of all the Big Finishes, because he is so perfectly the Doctor and getting under Davros' skin without, doing anything devious, just being a jerk and just messing with him. Yeah. And it's so fantastic when they're both working for the big conglomerate, alien conglomerate. And, it's funny as hell.
Oh, yeah. Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann may have had the greatest benefit of those Big Finish audio dramas, because the people who've given them a chance go, okay, they really have never made a bad choice when they're casting the Doctor. It's just some of them have had really bad scripts.
Yep, and you're right about McGann, even more so than Colin Baker. It's really been a nice redemption for him.
Oh, yeah, because he had, half an hour of screen time and what was... Oh.
It wasn't that little. Was it?
Well, the whole thing...
It is only like a 90-minute movie, I suppose, at the end of the day, the Fox movie.
It's a 94-minute movie. You're 46 or 47 minutes in before the regeneration happens, and in that last 45 minutes, they're cutting back and forth between the Doctor and the Master.
That is very funny. Wow. That is amazing. Jesus, I didn't think of it in those terms. And again, I'll tell you, as violent as it is, I love that death scene for Sylvester McCoy. Because he comes out of the TARDIS, his usual silly, frumpy self, and gets gunned down by a gang of San Francisco thugs, and it's like, wow, okay, guess what? We're not fucking around anymore, Doctor. Welcome to Earth. How you doing? Jesus.
Yeah. I think McCoy did say that in retrospect, he shouldn't have been a part of that. They should have done it like the Eccleston series, where the regeneration happened in between, and just tell the new Doctor story.
Sure.
Because that did make it more difficult for people who were not fans to get in.
I can appreciate that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that perspective, but honestly, the two biggest issues I had with it were the Doctor knocking down the door and having other supernatural powers, like walking through walls and stuff.
Yeah, that was weird.
That I didn't like, and making him half human on his mother's side, which you could try to write off as just a joke for the guy at the party, but then the Master looks into the eye in the TARDIS and draws the same conclusion. And I like when they asked Russell T Davies with the relaunch coming, when he said, no, this is not a reboot. It's a relaunch. All that history's there. One of the people in the fans at that con said, does that mean the Doctor is still half human on his mother's side? And Russell T Davies said, I will never deliberately contradict another writer. I think that's an insult. But I will never tell a story where the species of the Doctor's mother is going to matter.
There you go.
So he basically said, I'm not going to contradict him, but you can be damn sure I'm ignoring it.
Yeah. J.J. Abrams, I think, took that same tact in a lot of ways with Last Skywalker. We'll leave it at that. But,
yeah.
Well, I think Skype is trying to tell us that we should probably wrap up if we keep dropping out.
Yeah, we probably should, but yeah.
All good, man. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. Good Star Trek talk, among other subjects as well. And I can't help it. I mean, the word balloon audience knows I am counting the days till Star Trek Picard. Again, I am always an optimist and hopeful that indeed every week of Discovery, I'm like, okay, maybe I like this week's better. Even, and going back to Next Generation, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I really felt like I was struggling with that first season in particular of Next Generation as it was coming out in '87, where I'm like, all right, I'm really glad Star Trek's back, but really this?
Yeah, if it didn't have the power of the Star Trek brand, I don't think Next Gen would have had a season 2.
I agree with you, and it's even as you said, it didn't really find its footing until the third season. I like a lot of the third season or second season episodes. I kind of agree with the people that say Riker needs to have a beard, and then the show got better.
Yeah, season 2 was hit or miss when they were starting to say, oh, maybe this could work, but the season 2 growing pains are the growing pains most shows have in like the first 6 episodes when they're really finding themselves. But then again, season 2, that's where you've got Measure of a Man.
Yep,
and
great episode,
stuff like that. Like there's season 1 is the one season I would say is bad as a whole. Seasons, good episodes within it, but mostly bad. Season 2 was much better hit to miss ratio, and the rest were mostly good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And moving forward, certainly it was great. Another season 2 episode I really liked was Riker and his father.
Yep,
I thought that was a great episode, and I like Dr. Pulaski, and I know she's like kind of the antagonist to Picard, and is there to be disagreeable and stuff, but I kind of like that, I'm glad that Gates McFadden came back, and I'm glad that they wised up and rehired her.
Yeah, but if she hadn't left, Troy would have been fired. So.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that it would have been one or the other? That's amazing. And then and by the way, as far as like post network post show experience, like where the actors are now, I love hearing Marina Sirtis talk because the filter is off. She could care less, and she speaks her mind, and she tells you what she didn't like when they were making it. And she tells you what she doesn't like about today, and could care. And it's like, you don't like what I'm saying? Fuck you.
Yeah, she was at the expo last year too. So
she's hilarious.
Yeah, we actually had a really good expo last year. So met her when Eccleston canceled. I ended up getting a photo with Carrie Elwes and Wallace Shawn together.
Oh wow, that's amazing! Inconceivable. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and the thing that really blew me away with those guys, I came in with a number of DVDs that they were in and let them choose which project they wanted to sign.
Oh, that's nice.
So with Wallace Shawn, I came in with he said, wow, you've got like half my resume here. But of all that, so of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where he was the Nagus, of Princess Bride, of course, which is the big draw for why they were there.
Oh, sure.
A bunch of the Pixar movies, everything I had, he chose to sign Clueless because that's the one he liked the best.
Hilarious. He was great in Clueless. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about, did you bring My Dinner with Andre?
I don't have that. Otherwise, I would have.
Okay. That's a great movie. It really is a great movie.
That's what I keep hearing. You got the Criterion Collection treatment, which on the one hand is a good stamp of approval. On the other hand, means that it's not an impulse buy.
I understand. Because it's expensive.
Yeah. And then,
I understand.
Terry Elwes with his stack, like Princess Bride, X-Files Season 9 he was in as Brad Fulmer, all that stuff. And his choice was Psych.
Oh, that's great. He was terrific on Psych. That's terrific.
Yeah, I love those episodes. That was kind of neat. And same thing with Marina Sirtis, but she did choose to sign Star Trek over Gargoyles, but she made that choice right after checking out my Star Trek tie.
Oh, that's fun.
So I'm wondering, did she do that because she thought that was my preference? Whereas, like, if I owned a Gargoyles tie, I'd have been wearing that one instead. Because that was like a next-gen cast reunion, but also a great show.
Now, anytime Marina Sirtis has one of her con panels videotaped, I watch them. And some of it's the same stuff over and over again. I don't care. She is so damn funny because, like I said, she does not give a shit. and is happy to speak her mind. And in fact, whether you want to hear it or not, you're going to hear her opinion on stuff, and I love it. And even just her stuff about she's a massive soccer, football fan and everything, and talks about her favorite team and how great it was. She's like, that was like my Star Trek experience meeting my favorite team. And yeah, no, she's great that way. I love it. And I love when she's with Frakes and Michael Dorn as well, and that they call him Dorney. Is so cute. This big dude. That's just, Dorney. You know, and I love and really all of them. I'm a massive fan of that show. I've only met Frakes, and he's the only next gen. I was like kind of thinking back. I'm like, no, I met George Takei, I met Nimoy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I miss Nimoy, but
I saw a bunch of them when the 2016 when they had the 50th anniversary panel in San Diego, and we were in this one. They had the regular Hall H presentation, but then they had one for the press only, and it really was only like 100 of us in the room, and it was Shatner, Dorn, Jerry Ryan, Brett Spiner, and Brian Fuller, because Brian Fuller was talking Discovery then, and of course things change. But it was really great seeing all of them. But I don't even count that as actually, air quotes, meeting Shatner or what's-his-face from Quantum Leap.
Scott Bakula.
Bakula. Yeah, Bakula was there too, yeah. I mean, and so that's the thing. Like, it was really great being in the room and hearing their stories, and it was a really cool hour. But yeah, it's nothing compared to, getting to talk to George Takei was great, and getting to talk to Frakes. And even Nimoy, all I did was introduce him for his panel, but he was like, nicely done. And I'm like, oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sadly, I miss Nimoy. I've met...
Oh, God.
Shatner, Takei, Sirtis, and Spiner in the photo ops. So...
Cool.
Shatner did do a double take on the way out. I kind of regretted doing the photo op instead of the autograph on that, because I would have had some time to chat, because it's... When we're getting the photo... Like at first he was just, hey, how's it going? It was end of a long day. He was kind of, not taking his eyes off the lens.
Sure.
But I had a DVD with me. They took the picture, and then the guy in line behind me said, hey, what DVD is that? I don't recognize it. And I said, Incubus, which is the only Esperanto language movie produced out of Hollywood. Shatner's in it, written and directed by Leslie Stevens after he had created Outer Limits.
Outer Limits. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm walking out, and when I said Incubus, like Shatner's head snapped in my direction, like, wait, what? You've even heard of that? But we were getting ushered out. So that's one where I wish I'd been able to hand it to him for an autograph.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I hope you get a chance before he passes away. I don't mean to be I'm not wishing it or anything, but he's going to be 89 in March, which is insane.
Yeah, I'm happy I made Stanley the 1 year he came out here.
Yeah, I understand, buddy. Yeah, you did better than me, man. So I'm glad you got to see him as well. Your wife was with you too, right?
My ex, yes.
Oh, excuse me. I thought I didn't. I know that I seem to remember seeing the picture of you with Stan, and forgive me, I thought it was with your current wife. I didn't know that you were married a second time. There you go.
No, the first one we were engaged, but that fell apart before the marriage. Which, knowing what I know now, God, yes,
absolutely,
major upgrade.
You look very happy. The two of you look very happy. I'm very happy for you, Blaine.
We absolutely are. Yeah. The previous one was not who she pretended to be.
You dodged a bullet. There you go.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Well, that's good. You deserve nice people in your life. That's very good, man. Well, hey, man, like I said, a pleasure. Thank you for doing this. And I guess we'll know in 10 days if if our hopes are dashed or... Oh, it's okay. Good. And I'll be back next week for more. I mean, regardless, I'll certainly see it through. I don't know. I'm debating about should I do episode critiques or not. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I'm happy to open it. And also, people can re-email me, john@wordballoon.com, if you want me to do it or don't do it, John. You don't do much Star Trek.
Oh, I don't know. You label your episodes. We know what's going on. I mean, some of us listen to all of them anyway. The app I use, I could choose whether episodes go to the top of the queue or the bottom of the queue. So your Trek Talk with Rob Burnett, I'm 26 minutes into it right now. That's what I'm going to be finishing.
Great. We spoke for 3 hours and we never talked about Skywalker. Which I found amazing. And it just occurred to me at the end of the conversation. And I'm like, we're both like, again, we don't mean to do it. And it truly is a great compliment to me that Rob is willing to stay on as long as he does. But I'm like, I'm like, oh, Jesus, man, we talked for 3 hours and we didn't talk Skywalker. I go, but that's okay. Immediately, I'm like, that's okay. He's like, okay, good. And then we did end up talking for another half hour after we stopped recording. But No, I love Rob. He's terrific, man. And again, we're the same. We're about the same age. We kind of went through the same pop culture around the same years and stuff.
Yeah.
So I know if I make an obscure '80s reference, he's right there. Like, oh no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, plus one of the nice things about him, whether you agree with his opinions or not, he's not just that sucks. It's that sucks because, and then he'll give you all of his reasoning behind it, and
totally.
it'll turn into a good conversation. And
his.
Yeah. It's,
I was going to say his problems with Watch, but it did not occur to me while I was watching it. That said, I'm like, okay, if I were paying more attention, I can appreciate having disagreeing with where they went with the story or whatever. And I'm like, that's really interesting. So yeah, no, you're right. He doesn't just hate to hate, and even the Star Trek stuff as well. So, and I'm constantly laughing when he's talking, and it's not that I'm laughing at him. I'm just like, damn, that's some really good note taking. You're really paying attention, and I can't disagree with what you're saying. That's fantastic that you have these observations.
Yeah, I mean, the part that I'm at in the recording is right where he's justifiably complaining about the short trek with the history of the Enterprise that's blowing up the A in the wrong movie.
Yes, yeah, and seriously, man,
like people are going.
All right, well, sorry if we spoiled for you, man, but yeah, this is what I'm saying. They play at Star Trek. They don't really think about. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And even that animation thing, you could even argue, is just a pastiche and an excuse to kind of run through like great moments in Star Trek, I suppose. But they are telling it in the trappings of a story. I'll be interested when you see it, what you think of it. I just rolled my eyes because it's just like, okay, there's a waste of 8 minutes, and even more so the other animated episode, which was kind of a Rankin and Bass or even Pixar Frozen, has that kind of look to it, and tells this kind of allegory sort of story of Burnham in bed and her father's reading her a story. And I found that incredibly annoying as well because I'm like, this has very little to do with Star Trek. But okay, whatever.
And it's, see, to me, I mean, we talked about how much the Burnham show it is. If I were doing it, okay, if you're going to make it a Burnham-centric story in a season-long story arc and the other guys aren't getting it, I wouldn't do short treks about Burnham. I'd do it about the other cast members so that they have their moments. You
would think. Like the Tilly Runaway episode, yeah. No, you would think so. I mean, again, it would make more sense. Well, when you see this season's short treks, I'll be interested to hear what you think. And, thanks for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. And when, we'll see. Maybe either mid-season or when the season's over, maybe we'll review Star Trek Picard before Discovery gets started.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be caught up on the Orville by then, too. I'm only at the end of Season 1 right now.
It's worth it. I'll tell you, that show only gets better in the second season.
Yeah, I know Franco is not a fan, as listeners to the Audio podcast will know, but yeah, it's even the people I know who are not huge fans of it agree that Season 2 is better than Season 1.
Absolutely. And even Franco, the way the last several episodes of Season 2 were really exceptional. And even Franco's like, yeah, those were good. Yeah. So I have great hopes for Season 3 of The Orville. I'm happy to wait. It's okay. And I'm glad. And I hope that it does survive the
network change,
cancellation of Fox, and that they see value in Orville and will keep it going because it really, and especially as Star Trek Discovery continues to stumble around, the Orville eats its lunch every season. I think. I think the Orville's first season was superior to both seasons of Discovery myself.
I would agree with that. I would agree with Franco that some of the comedy doesn't work for me.
Totally.
Like, it's just, it falls flat, but...
Yeah.
And especially in those first couple episodes, where you could tell it was structured around half an hour, and they turned it into an hour long by adding bits.
Yes. No, I agree. And the comedy's forced. I think you get a much better balance in the second season. And there's some really good adventure moments in the second season that surpass what they did in the first season. I think it found its voice in the second season. I truly do. And also that they understood the pacing of an hour better than what we got in that first season. Yeah, I really, like I said, and again, I really hope Disney is smart enough to realize, oh, this is like in the same way that they kind of blew, that whoever owns Galaxy Quest kind of blew it. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, this is a good parody of Star Trek that can have legs. Like Get Smart had legs in the midst of the Bond era and was able to go on for 5 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. Galaxy Quest, if you say that is Star Trek 10 coming out because it came out between Insurrection and Nemesis, the odd even rule still holds.
You're right about that, unfortunately. Nemesis. Oh, well. Good Lord. That was all Stuart Baird's fault. I'm sorry. That's the director's fault. He had never directed a movie before. He's a superior editor. Superior editor.
And even
a lot of times those guys get jobs, and he clearly didn't give a shit about Star Trek. And you can tell from the commentary on the DVD, on the deleted scenes. You don't need this scene. This scene's unnecessary. The alternate ending is so much better and much more optimistic than the final scene of Picard and Data with the wine and everything. And yeah, I mean, just the extended scene with the new first officer and stuff was just funnier and lighter. And after all that heft and sadness that we got in Nemesis, we needed relief at the end.
Yeah, and
you got much more of it.
Yeah, I would agree that Stuart Baird he's a much better editor historically. I mean, he was the editor on the Richard Donner Superman. Like
there you go. Even The Fugitive in the 90s with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, he's done some great work, but the problem is he developed a reputation for being able to hit runtimes that the studio was asking for.
Yep.
I mean, he edited the first X-Men movie. And to hit that runtime, I think there's 30 seconds that should have stayed, because there's that scene in the bedroom where Wolverine tells Jean Grey, read my mind. She says, I'm not going to read your mind. And if you go to the deleted scenes or the extended scenes, you see, well, there's more of the conversation there. In the movie, she says, I'm not going to do it, and then reads his mind anyway. They're missing the bit where he kind of opens up and shows some vulnerability, and she realizes, no, he doesn't know what's in his mind. He wants to see if I can pull it out because he doesn't know who he is or where he's from.
Yep.
That should have stayed, but it didn't.
Agreed.
Now, I'm not going to say that that's all Stuart Baird's fault. The studio was saying, hit this runtime.
Right.
And often when they do that, they also say, but we spent this much money on special effects. Don't lose the special effects shot. It may be that's the only 30 seconds he could have pulled out without having a bigger problem. But that's what I felt with Nemesis, because
100% on Nemesis. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, when that came out, I was actually overseas when that hit theaters, because I spent 6 months in CERN doing my master's, because I started in physics research before I switched to TV. Yeah, so my first exposure to Nemesis was with the script, and that was the earliest script that would have been 2.5 hours, not the 100 minutes we got.
Yep.
And I actually like Nemesis better on repeat viewings, because I was so disappointed when I saw it, because so much of the stuff that got cut, and some of it was cut before they even filmed. Like,
I haven't read the script prior to the cuts, so that would be interesting to see, because, like I said, I felt a lot of the scenes, including obviously Wesley not being, getting any lines during the wedding. It's like, come on, man. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
That unedited script had the potential to be the best of the next-gen movies, if not the best Trek movie up to that point. Wow. And then they cut 30 or 40% of it, and you can't cut 30 or 40% of the movie without breaking it. That's what happened with Star Trek 4, or Superman 4, sorry.
And like you said, when it was 100 minutes, it's like, oh, this so clearly is being made to fill a 2-hour commercial block.
Yeah.
That's what they're concerned about, is not only how it does in the theater, but even more so the aftermarket on television and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was just so glaringly obvious like that. It's like, oh, you people suck.
Yeah, I swear that's what happened with Superman 4 Quest for Peace, because Sidney Furie, the director, the director's cut he turned in was 136 minutes. But the special effects were terrible because the studio, 10 days before they started filming, saying, oh, yeah, you don't have the $55 million we promised you. You've got $17 million.
Yep.
And the visual effects were the only ones that weren't committed. So I think they looked at what he turned in with the money they gave him and said, we're going to lose money on this no matter what because it looks so ridiculous. And that theatrical release is now like 89 minutes and 50-some seconds in an era when the biggest multiplex change would fit in one more screening each day on the weekdays if you were under 90 minutes.
There you go.
So I swear they said, hit this mark. So the director's cut of that is not without problems. Superman 3 and Superman 4 are not good movies. But if you gave the Superman 3 filmmakers $60 million with all the same people available and said, okay, you've got 10 weeks to make whatever you want, they would have made another movie because Superman 3 was the movie they wanted to make. If you did the same with the Superman 4, people would say, great, we could fix what we have.
No, I agree. And when Artie Baltazar, breaks down a lot of the story points of Superman 4, I can't disagree with a lot of what he says, and there's a lot of great ideas in there. And also, by the way, a modern nod. I'm really happy John Cryer was able to come back in Supergirl and be Lex Luthor, and obviously during the Crisis crossover right now, and put out an exceptional performance that absolutely redeems Lenny Luthor in Superman 4. And it's like any problems you had with young John Cryer in Superman 4. You got to give him credit for what he's done on Supergirl and now on the Crisis crossover. He's been amazing.
And I would say any problems you have with Lenny Luthor in Superman 4 are not problems with John Cryer. John Cryer played that part as it was scripted.
Of course. Yeah. Well, again, canon.
Yeah.
I'm shrugging. It's canon. I mean, have you seen that canon documentary?
Electric Boogaloo.
Yep.
That's another one amazing for Marina Sirtis fans, particularly those who find her attractive.
That's true. You're absolutely right about that. I was going to mention that earlier as well.
Yeah.
No, it's a great documentary, and it really makes you understand the history of canon films a lot better. And so you can there are explanations for some of the cheese and even some of the big budgeted failures they tried to make in the 80s. That when they got some A-level Warner or MGM money. And it's interesting. And every now and then I stumble on one of those big budget failures, and it's like, oh, there you go. That's a canon movie. There you go. Never mind. I understand. Mm-hmm. So, too funny. All right, enough of our tangents, Canadian Yoko Chips. I'm going to let you be.
Okay, yeah. I should probably head up. It wouldn't surprise me if my wife's almost got dinner ready. Should go contribute to that.
I was going to say, give her my apologies if you're late for dinner or anything. But, no, good conversation, Blaine. Pleasure having you on.
Oh, again, thanks for having me.
There you go, Blaine Dowler. Check out his website, Bureau 42, for a lot of interesting nerd talk. And like I said, he is working on the 100 Best Picture Oscar winners. Has it really been 100 years? I guess so. I don't know. But he's doing the Best Pictures that have won the Academy Awards. And pretty amazing. So I look forward to that list and contributing to it with my thoughts on one of those great movies. I hope you enjoyed today's Word Balloon, a Star Trek discussion. I'm going to have another talk with Jason Inman in just a few minutes, talking about his book, Jupiter Jet, his comic creations, and there's a little bit of Star Trek talk in there with Jason as well. Can't help it, but we also cover a lot of other nerd subjects. It's a great discussion, and I think you'll enjoy it. So thanks again, though, for listening to this episode of Word Balloon. It was brought to you by Aftershock Comics, who are continuing to shake things up in 2020 at your local comic shop right now. They're playing into the 2020 vision of some of their new books at Aftershock. The Man Who Effed Up Time is a brand new John Layman book that debuts next month. Can't wait to talk to him about that. We'll also be talking to other creators like Zach Thompson about Undone by Blood, God Killers by Mark Sable, and I hope to, I've been talking about it for a while, and every time I see her at a convention, I'm like, we got to talk on Word Balloon, and she's up for it. We just haven't made it happen yet. Marguerite Bennett, I want to talk to her about Animosity and her entire career, but also, Donny Cates, Baby Teeth, a wonderful book there. Garth Ennis has so many wonderful Aftershock books as well, and, Cullen Bunn, my buddy Phil Hester, Tim Seeley, Paul Jenkins, all great friends, all great creators who have added their name to the Aftershock roster. Go to their website, check out their catalog. You'll find full story descriptions, preview art pages, and how to get these books at your local shop using the diamond codes at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon. More great stuff to come. January isn't over, and neither am I. So look forward to talking to you in just a couple days with more great episodes here at Word Balloon. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions. Copyright 2020.